Madam Clerk, are we set to go? Is everyone up here? We all good? Yes, good. Everybody ready? Okay. All right, great. All right, so we're getting to start a little later. That's my fault. We had quite a few proclamations for our pre-meeting tonight. So let's get started with our regular commission meeting. So today is Tuesday, May 6th, 2025. It's almost 10 after 6, and we'll call the meeting to order. Madam Clerk, could you call the roll for us, please?
Mayor Groff.
Here.
Vice Mayor Gonzalez. Commissioner Amsler. Commissioner Huntington. Here. Commissioner Samara. Yeah. Mr. Mayor, you have a quorum.
Very good. Let's do the Pledge of Allegiance, please. This is, it doesn't seem to be the right one. This is June 3rd. Okay. All right, so let's take a look at our agenda and open this to the commission. Are there any additions, deletions, or withdrawals to the agenda before we move forward?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Sorry, 14E, I would like to have move up, since that's about the city manager
I was
position.
gonna suggest to take mine down to the very bottom and put 14E above, because that's way more important.
Okay. We'll switch those two.
I was always also going to suggest, I'm sorry, are we going by person here?
Are we,
we
is
done?
that the only, well, I don't, I mean, we have our consent, and then we have only two other items, one ordinance and one resolution. I think we'll be all right to get through, to get to the manager one. If we take that one next in order.
To be sure that the commissioner reports are heard tonight, not like the last two times.
Well, we had our commission reports, but we'll get to them. Okay. All right. All right. So right now I have switching 14A with 14E, so we can take the village manager selection process first when we get to new business. Everyone all right with that?
Yes.
I would like to also move up the item related to the Australian pine, since we have a lot of folks here. So maybe for, sake of time, we can push that up. So discussion item, let me get to it, 14D, move it to the very top. And at the same time, I would like to pull from the current consent agenda a few items.
So before we get to the consent agenda, since the Australian Pines one is, well, it's very similar to our, well, it's not that it's similar to our ordinances, it deals with the things in our ordinance. I don't know if we can kind of intertwine those and talk to them.
Well, that was going to be part of what I was going to suggest as well.
Okay.
So, I think there's few things to do related to what we have a discuss. I don't know why we started at the end. That's why I'm just following on the discussion item
gotcha.
especially.
Okay.
So I was suggesting, since we make some changes here,
Okay.
just to raise up on the list to start with the Australian pine, so that we can give folks here the ability to stay through the night with us. And then I'll start from the consent agenda. I would pull out item 10C, 10D, and then I will pull the minutes, all of them, including the ones for March and April.
That's F, G, and H.
Yes. Yes, for discussion. So, and the ordinance number 11, which is where you were stating, I would suggest we move it into discussion. And, in this case, as you suggested, I think it's a good idea to combine my item with this ordinance as a first draft. I'm not a big fan of having first draft ordinances come to us without a dialogue first. So I would make sure that at any time, and this is something we can regulate ourselves through policy, but I don't agree with putting ordinances for approval without having had the chance to discuss what's in them. So I would propose to pull that out into discussion and combine it with the Australian Pines item, which would go first.
Okay, so it would be 11A combining, moved from ordinance to discussion in
Combine with
conjunction with
14D.
14D.
Yes.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay. For Commissioner Amsler's amendments, we have consensus?
Yeah,
Sure.
I see that these are a rather lengthy discussion, so I could see not hearing both of these items tonight and rather move them both to a workshop. That way we can give them the due diligence they deserve. I would not rather, if we're going to move it out of ordinance off, I'd rather not hear both of these items, combine them to a tree care workshop and let it be heard in one public meeting. We can hammer all these things out because we could be here for hours with what we have to talk about.
So it's good you said that. I actually called the attorney to ask this procedural question right before, because I wanted to propose that. I'm all for skipping today's discussion. I think it deserves the time to be in a workshop as well. The attorney thought procedural was better to push it into discussion and then, allows us for us to discuss why this fits better in a workshop.
Sure.
And that was, yeah, essentially the conversation. I think I had a similar conversation with Commissioner Huntington. I guess the first question was, does the commission want to move forward with some type of ordinance and some type of policy? If the answer is yes, and that's really why my thought was to move it into the discussion, for a brief discussion. Do you all want to move forward with something?
Yeah.
Some form of the ordinance, combination of the two, whatever it might be.
Yep.
And I think both commissioners their points are well taken. It would probably be better suited for
A workshop.
workshop.
Yeah.
Where it could be a sole item on the agenda. The public can address it. You all have time to speak about it, parse it out, give me some direction as to what it is you want me to draft, and I will do my best to do that. Commission,
Mm.
and either you can have it on for another discussion, or you bring it to first read, whatever you.
Brad, you said we had till the end of the year, right? So we got,
Standing in the air as to how we move forward with this workshop. It's either Parks and Parkways takes both of these items on and they elaborate us. So it's more of the format on how we see this happening as well. I am all for, if you guys are ready to decide this now, prior to discussion, for it to go to to Parks and Parkways and come back to us and have a sit down at the same meeting. It could be a workshop with us after as well. So have Parks and Parkway here, make maybe a special commission meeting because by sunshine we have to, and have an
We certainly, the commission, probably don't want to just give it only to them, and then I think that we need to be involved. Just because I know a lot of what I was hearing was concerns about the authority of the village manager in his involvement, or whoever is in that seat, their involvement in that. So I certainly have no problem doing that, if that's what the commission would like to do.
So
I
do
would-
we
I would
agree
do that.
there's 2 steps to it? I just want to be clear as to what are we going to brief Parks and Parkways with? They have,
Suggested to take it.
yes, to the discussion.
Just to figure, not to hash out the ordinance,
Mhm.
but just for you to have procedurally, what do you want to do with this ordinance moving forward? Do you want Parks and Parkway to consider it first and then have a special commission meeting? Is that special commission meeting going to be just the commissioners, or I meant a workshop? Do you want to have a joint workshop with the Parks and Parkway Board? Obviously, Madam Clerk would have to publicly notice that it's a joint meeting, so it complies with sunshine.
Mm.
That was why I was saying, I'm not sure it's appropriate to do it at this point in the agenda, but
Yeah.
you certainly can. But that's why I was suggesting maybe a discussion item, just to see how what path it's taking.
Well, I mean, I would tell you, in the hopes of trying to just take care of it now, I would kind of foresee it as something going to Parks and Parkway, having their comments on it, and then planning a special workshop between the two
I
groups.
think the most constructive thing was what Brad just mentioned, is having a joint meeting with Parks and Parkways and us. So that way we don't have to have a back and forth month after month. We can sit down to the same table and have a discussion together. And that would cut out a lot of lead time. I'm not trying to rush the process, but if we have comments and they have comments, we go back and forth, I mean, things get lost in translation. It's better to be face to face in a room together, and we.
So why don't we do this?
Reserves.
prohibit in between, and I don't know when they meet, but that, if you were gonna have a joint meeting with Parks and Parkway Board, that doesn't prohibit them to meet on their own agenda and have a private, not private, but have a discussion just among their board members, so they're prepared for their joint meeting with you. So
So why don't we do it this way then? Why don't we plan for that meeting to be with this commission and with the Parks and Parkway Board? In the interim, we'll provide the ordinance that has been drafted to them to see if they can pull anything that they would see useful from that or provide comments on it so they're prepared.
But I also would like to give visibility for residents to participate in Park and Parkways. If this is going to be the way in which they will participate, the time is of the essence in terms of letting them know when this meeting is going to come up, what are the materials that are being revised, so that everybody can kind of bring their own thoughts to it. That's why for me, the first workshop was internally. I don't think we needed to stay there as commissioners listening to the arguments. They're going to be back and forth as to what people think it's right and what people think it's not. And that's the purpose of having just an independent workshop. And then once that's sort of landed somehow, somewhere, and again, we're not prohibited to be part of that. If it's more than one, then it'll have to be noted publicly. But it's not going to take one meeting. So I think just send it in now. It's going to get, okay, what do I do with this? The idea is that people know this is happening, when the meeting's going to be there. There's been discussions about adding, I presented a scope of work as a draft with some of the things that were brought up, and there's other concerns I need to, in terms of treatment of the soil. And so this is the opportunity. We got to give people time to lend with their ideas to the meeting so they can contribute. And then they can come up with proposals. That was my, so I didn't want to rush into 1 month. It doesn't have to be the next meeting. It might take 2-3 months. I don't know. We have time.
When would you be
So-
proposing a date, I guess?
So for me, the first thing is to advise administration to go ahead and let Parks and Parkways know that we're lending this on them, provide them with all the materials, and then due diligence in terms of communicating residents when the meeting's going to be, which I would push it for next month. So that if the meeting is next Wednesday, again, I don't know when the next meeting is. Pamela, you can let us know.
It's here.
Okay,
That's fine. March 28th.
March, well, that happened already. May 28th. So May 28th, we have some time. So that could be an opportunity. This could be the first meeting where people can come and bring their ideas. And then that will be maybe you need 2 meetings, maybe you need 3. I don't know. So the idea is that by the time it comes back to us, what I'm saying is that you guys have already met, hashed out your concerns, and bring both and say, listen, most of people incline this, but we also think this is considered a consideration to have. You guys are the Parks and Parkways Board. At those meetings, I don't think it's necessary that we're there. If anything, I think it's better when we're not, so people can come and freely speak as they wish. And then once it lands here, then, you guys can be part of it as well, of course, and we can have a separate workshop of it, so.
So maybe the best thing would be to have Parks and Parkways look at it. We'd get kind of an update at the June regular commission meeting, and then we can plan on a date from there to see if we're ready to set up a date by that point. Does that make sense?
So you will notify a date at the next commission, at the next Parks and Parkways meeting, which is the 28th. You will communicate a date call for this workshop. See, that's why we needed to put this.
No, I know, but I'd like to get us past the item because I don't want to leave this to the end of the meeting, when then be rushed to approach it. Your mic's not.
Together with the
Sorry.
together with the SOP.
Let me try that again. The city commission is directing the Parks and Parkway Board to take the draft tree preservation ordinance, conduct a review, propose whatever modifications, changes, additions, deletions, whatever that you feel is appropriate, in the best interest of the village. Also because just so you know that part of the Tree City requirement is that there's also a complementary policy that has to be entered by created by the village. So any recommendations with regards to a policy regarding tree removal, soil remediation, whatever it might be that you all feel is appropriate. And then report back to the commission in June as to whether or not you're prepared for, is it a joint workshop that you're looking to do? For a joint
so, yeah.
workshop between the Parks and Parkway Board
Right.
and the commission, which would obviously be publicly noticed, where you could all have a group discussion and parse out what the ordinance should look like, and of course, with public input at your meeting as well as that workshop. You think I'm going to remember what I just said? I'm not going to remember what I just said. I'll put something together, and what I will do is I'll distribute it I'll distribute it to you, Madam Chair, and, well, actually, I'll distribute it, never mind. So, make it clear, yeah.
Great. Thanks very much.
All the support of the ordinance, the SOP, which is the policy Bradley was talking about. I mean, I think that those are the elements, and then, you know, they can discuss to add whatever they see fitted.
Okay, excellent.
And with your permission, I will provide backup that was provided.
Yes,
Commissioner Huntington.
please do.
by Commissioner Ansler, so
Okay,
that it has all that information so they can parse out what they.
all right, perfect.
I will share also, Anna, with you all the documents I received with the Parks and Parkways as recommendations. I mean, I have a lot in my plate in terms of feedback I got that I think it's relevant in case, you know, this from organizations, but also to reach out to them to see if they can assist.
Commissioner, if I'd ask, just provide it to me and I'll provide it to the.
I will. Okay.
Okay, great. All right, so then with that having now been resolved, that's going to remove 11A from our agenda for this evening as well as 14D. Okay. I think,
Mr. Mayor, I'd also like to pull, if we have consensus,
Yeah.
the whole of reports of item 9 to the bottom of the agenda.
Nine, nine,
6:30, we've already lost 30 minutes. We were going to run short on time here, and there's other pressing matters. So I'd like to remove the reports to the bottom of the meeting.
I mean, I'm fine with that. You got it? Are we okay with that? We're moving the department reports to the bottom. Sounds like yes. Yes, good. Okay. All right. That's what we're doing. All right. I think that's everything. And I've got copious notes here. Hopefully that I will continue to get it right. So do I have a motion in a second to approve the agenda as it's been amended?
Motion to approve.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, great. All right. So let's move on to our only presentation for this evening. It's with Maureen Pentland. Is she with us? Is she on Zoom? Oh, all right.
Hi, good evening.
Hi, Maureen. How are you?
Terrific. How are you all doing?
Great. Thank you very much. So we are up to your item when we're ready for your presentation, whenever you'd like to get us started.
Terrific. This is going to be a fairly short presentation. I'm going to just take a look at, if you could switch to page 2, the presentation, page 2. That's perfect. So what we're recommending this year is to renew with Florida Blue with a 10.7% increase with no plan design changes. Reason being, as you might recall last year, and I know some of you are newer, we had a pretty high increase. And in order to bring that increase down, we went from a $2,500 deductible to a $3,500 deductible, which was a pretty substantial change for the employees. So this year, we're recommending that the village renew with the increase at 10.7 with no plan design changes and maintaining the benefits exactly as they are. We did look at other options this year. AdMed came in at a 44% increase. NHP came in with a 26% increase, and that's over our current premium. Cigna, Aetna, and Florida League, not a good fit. Cigna and Aetna they do not quote in this space. They would typically quote a self-funded quote for small group, but they will not quote a self-funded group for municipalities. And then, of course, we went to Florida League, and this year in and year out, they're just not a good fit. They've declined to quote due to non-competitive bids. So basically, we're in a situation where the employer or the village would absorb $18,000 increase for next year. The employees will not absorb any increase for employee only. That is because the village pays 100% for employee only. And we only have one employee who has employee children, and they would receive a 10.7% increase in their payroll deduction. But again, the employees won't see any of this because the village pays 100% of the single only premium. We can go into more detail, but typically we would do a long presentation and show you all the different options and the different benefit designs, and you'd have a decision to make. But basically, we're kind of in a one and only option for our coverage for next year for June 1 effective date.
Maureen, thank you. So, is there anything else you'd like to present to us before we go ahead and open up to the commission for any questions they may have for you?
Nope, that would be it.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just ask the commission if they'd like to ask anything of you based on your presentation, the materials that we received. But it sounds to me, and certainly feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds to me, out of all of the options that you polled and investigated to determine if you could save any money outside of that 10% increase, there were really no better savings plan in any of the plans
That
that
is
you
it
saw.
in a nutshell, exactly.
Okay. All right, I'll go ahead and open it up to the commission for any questions they may have for you, Maureen. Thanks so much for being here with us this evening.
My pleasure.
Any other questions?
I don't have any questions.
No?
Maureen, I have one question. Could you expand on, you said that Florida League declined to quote because of lack of competitive bid. Is that a lack of competitive bid on our part or on their part? Can you
No,
just-
it's on their part. So because of the size and the benefit, they first, they don't offer a deductible at 3,500. So when they're coming in at a $2,500 deductible, their cost structure is just not, it's far too high. Their rates are not competitive with where we are with Florida Blue, and they're recommended. I did send the email to the village manager, and they recommended that we go ahead and renew with Florida Blue. They said there's no way they can touch those rates. And even if they could get competitive, which they have not been for years, every time we've gone to them, they've not been able to deliver a quote to us, but they don't even offer a $3,500 deductible. So it's not a good fit for us. Cost wise, they're going to come in much higher than what we have.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for expanding on that.
Sure.
I have a question. So basically, we're left with no alternative but Florida Blue.
That's it. That's correct. And
And
really,
the hit,
a 10.7% increase sounds high, but in the small marketplace, it's actually, it's not bad at all. Last year, I don't know if you recall, we started at 23%.
yes.
So it sounds horrible, but it's really in this market, in this small group market, it's not bad at all.
And for what you're saying, we are taking the hit as the employer, not the employees.
It's sort of. It's an 18.7 across. 18.2 across the board. The 18,000 increase. It's just that because you really don't have anybody enrolled in employee spouse, employee children, and family. You only have one employee. But if they were enrolled, they would also be getting a 10.7% increase in their payroll deduction. But the employee, as I said, they have a zero payroll deduction, so they're not going to feel any pain whatsoever. It's just the employees who would have enrolled in those other tiers will get a 10% increase.
Yeah.
So to clarify that, there is one employee who's enrolled in employee and family, and they would be getting a 10% increase, correct?
That is correct. Yes.
Okay. Are there any other questions from the commission? Hearing none. Okay. Well, Maureen, thanks so much for the information. We appreciate it. I'm
you.
sure we'll be looking forward to to getting any more information from the manager that we need on the increase in the renewal. So thanks so much for being here with us, Maureen.
Thank you.
Okay.
Have a nice night.
Question? I'm sorry, Maureen, are you still with us?
Yes, I'm still with you.
I think we have one more question from a commissioner.
Sure.
What is that one the one employee that has a 10% increase, is that a lot of money, or is that something that if we're paying for the other employees, I'm just concerned about the one employee that happens to be lucky enough to have a family, that in a way is being penalized. And I wonder
Well,
what's the difference?
the contribution that the employee is still receiving about $1,000 from the village towards the contribution, towards the premium, and then they pay the remainder. And every employee, E plus spouse, E plus children, E plus family, everyone gets the same dollar amount contributed towards each tier. And it's a reasonable contribution. And typically, and unfortunately, most employees are seeing those types of increases to their payroll deduction. So if you were to change the contribution strategy, then you would have to change it for every tier. So you'd have to up it for e-spouse, you'd have to up it for e-children, you have to up it for family. And I don't know that you would want to do that at this point. In other words, you can't just pick the one employee out and say, oh, we're gonna help you out. We're gonna change your contribution so you don't get the 10.7. So basically, any employee that enrolls in e-spouse, e-children, or family will receive a 10.7% increase.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
All right, Maureen, thanks so much again for being with us here
My pleasure.
tonight. This was helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so that concludes our presentations for the evening. So let's go ahead and move on to our public comment. We will start with the folks here in the log cabin. Please just remember that name and address is required for public comment, and then it is limited 3 minutes. And then we'll move on to Zoom after that. So anyone can get us started. It doesn't sound like it is.
Are we gonna have to maybe give you one of our mics if we can solve it?
Then we can't hear you on the Zoom. It's not.
Hello?
Oh, there we go.
Hello, hello, hello. I got this.
Here we go. All right.
Howard Goldman, 11950 Northeast 6th Avenue, chairperson for the committee to give over the resumes we've all agreed upon for the next chief of police, that the interim city manager will make final decision on of the remaining candidates. So I'll just read to you a little bit of how we've come to where we are today. Our interim city manager, Al Childress, put together this committee to review resumes submitted and agree to a final 7 to be interviewed. The committee members are Ed Hudek, Coral Gables Chief of Police, Sam Behar, North Bay Village Deputy Chief of Police, Bob Anderson, Biscayne Park resident, Trish Walker, Biscayne Park resident, Joseph Frechette, Biscayne Park resident, and myself, Biscayne Park resident. We were tasked to review approximately 20 resumes to come up with what we'd agreed upon would be 7 candidates to be interviewed with approximately 12 questions, which we will be reviewing and handing in our recommendations to Al Childress. And that's where we are today. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks very much. Floor is open.
Long time no see. Barbara Kuhl, 777 Northeast 111th Street. Just because the gentleman brought that up, since you are going to be selecting a new village manager, I hope you are going to let the new village manager make that final decision, whoever that may be. Okay, the tree ordinance. I heard what you said, and it seems like you have decided that we are going to have a new tree ordinance. I'm not really sure how this is going, but right now we have Miami-Dade County tree ordinance which is an extremely comprehensive ordinance that covers everything you could possibly want. It covers the people's yards, private property, and the swale. And it gives direction about planting trees, maintaining trees, selecting trees to plant. It's ridiculous, in my opinion, to try to reinvent the wheel. There's absolutely no necessity. One of the things in the tree ordinance that you had was, it said that you're trying to meet the specifications from the Arbor Day Foundation so you can apply to Tree City USA. Well, when I was on the Park and Parkways Board, when we did plant trees and we were eligible to apply for Tree City USA, we cited the Miami-Dade County Code. We did Arbor Day celebrations, proclamations. We did everything we did to, and we got the designation. So we do not need anything else to apply for Tree City USA. You know, all this thing with Tree City USA, I would like to see us actually planting trees and not talking about proclamations and being able to have the right signage and plant trees. Use your Park and Parkways Board for advice. The fact that they were left out of this entire process is absolutely appalling. I was at the meeting and they didn't even know anything about this. It's absolutely a disgrace that you have a board and it was completely left out. It was like, oh, when they asked about making a comment about this, Al Childress was there and so was Commissioner Huntington. And I don't even remember which one said, well, you can come to the commission meeting and you have 3 minutes to make a comment. That was so insulting. Okay, listen, the village manager is supposed to carry out the policies of the commission. When you do your budget, you are actually setting a policy for what you want to spend. For instance, the tree removal. You set a policy of $35,000 to remove Australian pines. And you had a policy where you said, I think it was another $30,000 to plant trees. That's a policy. It can't be 3 minutes already, is it? Jesus Christ. I know, I didn't even get to the first paragraph. Listen, you set the policy. You said $35,000 to remove trees. Those trees, it probably would have amounted to 6, 7 trees. That's what should have been done. It should have been done every year that it was put on the budget from the old Park and Parkways Board. You only did it a couple of times. Taking out all of the Australian pines at once was an absolute nightmare. There was no thought to what would be planted, no thought with how you were going to move ahead, and you were leaving these people with barren, desolate medians. And I can't think of anything more disgusting to do to residents who pay the taxes to live in this city and leave them with that. Look, I'll pass it on to Gary. He can complain next.
I don't need a musical accompaniment either. Gary Kuhl, 777 Northeast 111th Street. Just to underscore what Barbara said, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. I looked at other cities and right off the bat found Edgewater and Sunny Isles, I believe it was. and they reference the Miami-Dade Code, and they are in Tree City, USA. Writing something, a tree ordinance, which is incomplete, is going to conflict with the Miami-Dade Code and is going to cause confusion. It is truly unnecessary. More importantly would be to discuss and address a program for tree removal. We went ahead, removed these trees right off the bat. People weren't notified. I don't know how many people I've heard from that were just flabbergasted that their median was decimated and they didn't even know what was going on. Even if it's a single tree, the adjacent homeowner should be notified. That to me was an incredible faux pas. You know, we have several spaces now in 121st Street where people can drive across the median, even though we landscaped other areas to prevent that. We have decimated medians in front of people's houses. I remember a gentleman talking about, I heard somebody else this evening, talking about the fact, like on 119th Street, they woke up and all their trees were, well, not literally woke up, but you get the point, and all the trees were gone, and they had no notification whatsoever. One thought concerning the Australian pines was that we have to wait, or we have to apply herbicides. Actually, first of all, we don't need herbicides. I think probably you've received you've seen things in neighbors as well as received emails from people objecting to it. And we don't have any Australian pines sprouting. It's superfluous, it's dangerous, totally unnecessary. And the idea that we have to wait is also false. There's immediate things that can be done, such as the biggest problem with Australian pines is they create a very acidic environment. You can add lime to mitigate that. You can also add organic matter, or you can do both. So immediately you can start planting. And in fact, live oaks can be planted anyway, like they did on Griffin, where they took down the Australian pines and immediately came back and put in live oaks, and they're doing just fine. You know, this really isn't difficult. This is simple, okay? It's just takes a little research and a little resident input can give some guidance in this, but we don't need another ordinance. Okay, this simply should be a policy of the village. A lot of cities, quite a few, do not allow residents to even get involved with planting anything in the swale or the medians. You know, Park and Parkway spent several years seeking grants and very dutifully going through the village, looking at the empty spaces and putting trees in. And that's a program we need to continue, and continue with, you know, particularly when we're doing tree removal. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Melanie Oliva, 590 Northeast 121st Street. I'm extremely concerned about the tree ordinance on the agenda. I know we're going to talk about it later. No matter where the language came from, it was a choice to be put on the agenda as is. Residents have voiced that they'd like to be more involved in decisions that alter our environment, not less. This ordinance proposes the opposite, giving complete authority to the village manager to cut down trees at any time without resident interference, and would leave it up to one person to decide if wildlife or tree experts should be consulted. To reinstate our Tree City status, we do not need a new ordinance. We adopted Dade's Landscape Code 18A. We do need standard operating procedures, which Commissioner Amsler has been working on, and I think will be worked on in the workshops. Regarding those Australian pine next steps, I'd like to see them strengthened, adding traditional structure nests to those protected, which are nests that are reused every year and added onto, that allows the birds to have more babies. Defining what is urgent versus an emergency. Adding that communication with residents should always be made before tree removal, even if an emergency. adding that wildlife inspections should only be done by wildlife experts or environmental consulting firms, not just arborists. We have not yet studied the ramifications of losing 30 large trees. Effects can include more flooding, a 10-degree temperature increase, habitat loss, and loss of carbon dioxide absorption. Biscayne Park mistakenly identified an urgent situation as an emergency. Human and wildlife residents will be paying for the price for years. I'm still confused about where the funds for the removal came from. Global warming is the emergency. Together we must survive in a city that's flooding on a planet that's overheating. New science shows non-native trees withstand heat better than natives. For 10 years, I've advocated that native plants are important. Why? Because they host native wildlife. These 8 Australian pines host multiple native wildlife species. Their benefits as large trees outweigh their negatives, in my opinion. In addition to their value to our ecosystem, they provide property value. Let's put our energy towards inspecting these trees with multiple unbiased experts in an effort to preserve, as we agreed upon. Also, the Durham Garland 4 application proposed by Commissioner Huntington to treat the medians is unnecessary and dangerous. It's a harmful herbicide containing triclopyr, which is restricted in Europe and Canada. I helped form a pesticide coalition, a pesticide-free coalition, because harmful herbicides kill pollinators and birds. They cause dogs to foam at the mouth at the Miami Shores tot lot and kids to become sick. And in North Miami, they actually caused a public works employee to get cancer. Regarding the new village manager selection, I hope all commissioners have met with the new candidates. We need a manager who communicates with residents, listens to their concerns, puts them into action, and works with the commission in an equitable way. I'd like to see a public interview of final candidates, allowing residents to be included. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ronald Coyle from 11524 Griffin Boulevard. I was born and raised here. I lived here for 67 years now, probably longer than all you guys put together. And I've seen the changes in Biscayne Park. And I have to tell you, when I was a kid, I couldn't sleep in the morning past like 7 o'clock because there were so many birds, you know, making noises. It was literally millions of birds. I mean, millions and millions of birds. And these pines, the mature trees that we're cutting down, these are homes to birds. And the birds come every year. It's just not like one time they make a nest there. They make a nest, they have babies there, their babies have babies there, they come back and have babies there. And it just goes on and on and on. And the value of a mature tree is exponential. And so when you cut down a mature tree, you're really making a big mistake, because the tree's not a tree. A tree that has rot is good. And a lot of people think that these casuarina pines are short needles. They're a non-suckering. They're not related to the invasive long needle pines. So they're not a menace. They don't spread. You don't see no shoots coming out of the ground. They're not spreading. And these trees have a strategy where they hollow out in the middle. And everyone thinks, oh, they're rotten. Look at those burls. Well, I got pictures of all the trees they cut down on Griffin Boulevard, and they were all solid rock. And they were all hollow in the middle. And what happens when the tree's hollow in the middle, the wind blows it this way and that way, and it doesn't snap in half like an oak tree. And oak trees break. The oak trees, hardly any trees were left standing after Hurricane Andrew. When you went down and got past Kendall Drive on Hurricane Andrew, there were no trees left, only Australian pines. They were the only tree left standing. And out of the 144 trees that we used to, Australian pines that we used to have here, when all the hurricanes came, 3 of them blew down. And so this is a tree that's, the guy that planted him actually planted him as a break for hurricanes. He was a super expert, Griffin. His name was Griffin, and he planted him to protect his nursery down Griffin Boulevard. And so what happens is when you cut down all the trees and there's nothing left to blow down, guess what it blows down? Your house. And you go, oh, well, these trees are dangerous. They're so heavy and whatever. Right. They're heavy. They stick up really high. And that's the ones that create cavitation and make the wind break so that your house doesn't blow away. All right. So I want to say something else too. You know, if you ever go to these, like if you go to Disney World, they don't plant the oak trees like the cookie cutter community. Every single tree is an oak tree. That you got to have variety, and especially for bird species, because not just one species of bird goes to this kind of tree, another species goes to this tree, and we've got all these oak trees. That's all we got, and it's kind of hideous that we look like a community that is, you know, like out west, you know, like Silver Lakes and all these places. That's all they plant is oak trees. And I mean, you know, the beautiful thing about Biscayne Park, it's an eclectic look, you know, it's the variety of the trees. And we don't have that today. And I just, you know, I heard that the guy that cut down all them trees and got paid, was it $130,000 for them trees on 120? He paid for that new truck just on our job and did it in 1 week. You know, so, I mean, who's making the deals here? I mean, what kind of, you know, winner do we got that pays a crew of 3 people in a truck $120,000 for 1 week's worth of work? I mean, does that add up? Is, you know, this, you know, to me, this is like Washington, D.C. now. Biscayne Park's turning into whatchamacallit. And I don't know how many city managers are we on now? I was just wondering, are we up to like, is it 9 or 10? Huh? In 16 years, we got 10 city managers. I mean, it's not even averaging 2 years. We need continuity. Do you know that the first 40 years that I lived here, they had the same guy running the park? Just as a little bit of history. You know, his name was Edmund Burke. I think this is the recreation center's named after him. This guy ran this place and he ran it good. And it's just a little village and he handled it. One guy. Didn't need a whole bunch of people. One guy ran everything, and he did it for he did it for free for I think the first 25 years, and then like the last 15 years they gave him a salary. So I mean, you can pay. It's just like paying. You don't get good stuff by paying people a lot. You get good stuff by people having their heart in it, you know. And we need to have more of that, you know, and less of this professional corporate machine that you guys are cooking up, you know, or have been cooking up. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, good evening, everyone. My name is Yaeli Steele. My home address is protected under the Charter 119 on Florida status. I'm the wife of ex-Chief Mark Steele. So I'm here today as a citizen, as a wife, as a woman who refused to stay silent. I'm speaking today not as a legal expert, but also and under my First Amendment rights as a private citizen expressing my personal view and concern based on facts, public record, and personal experience. I brought flyers and search results to support each of my claims I'm going to talk right now today. So does everybody know that my husband resigned in February 20? So at that point, he didn't have any investigation, nothing going on. If everyone need to know or clarify why he resigned, you can go to the March 4 commission meetings and everything is going to be very well explained over there. So saying this, he present his resignation, he left because he was not agree with many stuff that was happening here, unethical. So without any investigation, look at what happened now. So following his resignation in February 20, so in March 4, here in the commission meeting, so the Village of Adjournment announced an investigation into my husband based on complaint from an ex-officer, Roberto Navarro. It's important to know that Mr. Navarro had previously had investigated and dismissed under the previous city manager administration. So with the case closed and agreed upon by all parties, and in Google, I searched, and Mr. Brady was working here at that time. So in my opinion, any excuse was needed to reopen this matter, raising question about the motive behind this investigation never notified before to my husband. Furthermore, as per Mr. Bridle, on the meeting March 4, he personally stated verbally in the minutes, 2 hours, 59 minutes, 13 seconds, that in March 6, he was planning to meet an investigator, so 2 days later, who will be in charge in a neutral investigation against to my husband regarding to this new inquiry. Question. I would really like to know when we lost the meaning of what neutral investigation is supposed to be. How can investigation be called neutral when the same village attorney is the one choosing the investigator that is going to run that investigation? There is something calling conflict of interest. Is that exist in our law? Is it still exist in our law? So because the person selected to investigate, the name is Mr. Ricky Manglioni, was the chief of police in Fort Lauderdale until he was separate on his duties. During the same period of time, Mr. Broadley, the village of attorney, worked there as a legal advisor. So working in the same workplace department, and I bring flyers. I'm gonna give it to you if you need to clarify or watching with your own eyes. So I brought flyers tonight, as I said, because I don't just speak, I bring evidence. As I can see, I'm the only person here that have internet and Google. So as always I said, nothing here is classified info. It's everything in Google. After being previously requested
Ma'am,
on March 17, my
can I
husband
ask a question, please?
a notification that his law enforcement
Ma'am.
supervision was damaged.
Ma'am,
He's not able
excuse
to be
me.
a police here in Florida anymore because this.
Ma'am, you've exceeded your
sorry.
3 minutes. I have a question. No.
Let me
Look,
finish because this is interesting
look,
for everyone when
look,
his
we've-
money are used in this
No,
investigation.
You've had an opportunity that ma'am,
To an
ma'am,
hearing commission
ma'am, excuse me. We have decorum rules here in the village.
here if you want
If there's
to.
anything you want to provide to make
Peter.
part of the record, ma'am. All right,
That the investigation is going to cost $10,000. Going to
ma'am,
to that. People here need to know.
ma'am, excuse me.
It's for 5 housing working body and not being investigated. Just my husband because it's not convenience.
Ma'am,
So
please.
there is an investigation here for 5 housing working environment. They are investigating just mine
Ma'am,
because the purpose is to
officer,
evidence.
ma'am,
Able to talk because he's under legal restriction.
officer, ma'am, this needs to stop, ma'am. Ma'am, we've given you an opportunity to speak.
The way that close
Please, officer, please.
his position.
Ma'am,
I'm sorry. I'm gonna wait.
ma'am, no, ma'am. You've had ample opportunity, ma'am. Yeah, please do, officer, please do.
Okay.
Bueno, me pongo don't put me in a bad situation.
Ma'am, we need to move on with our meeting, please. Officer,
So if you have any doubt,
thank you, ma'am. I understand, that's fine, but we have to move on, ma'am. We provided you with an opportunity. We need to move on. Thank you. Okay.
My name is Susan Howell. I'm a resident of Miami Shores, 70 Northeast 101st Street. I'm here to talk about a few things. I've spoken before about the birds in the trees and how concerned I am about the way that was handled. But I want to talk today about the tree ordinance. And what I really don't understand is you don't need it. You have what it takes to already be registered as a tree city. And this is an additional thing that is giving more power, almost all power, to the village manager. And I really don't understand that. So you're adding something that's taking away the transparency and the ability for the community to weigh in. And it's with somebody that we've seen I don't know who the new manager will be, but there's very little to no knowledge about nature and trees and birds. And to give somebody authority without letting the community weigh in and the residents who pay the taxes, I don't understand it. I've worked in public corruption my whole life, and to me, the whole idea of it just kind of stinks. So that's one thing. Second of all, on trees, trees are so necessary. They are necessary because they convert carbon dioxide into oxygen. They absorb the sun's rays. They cool. We are in a climate crisis, whether you believe it or not. The world's heating up and it's flooding. And they also help the soil to absorb the water so there's less flooding. And I know there is something out there to use the herbicide, I might be pronouncing it wrong, but it's triclophir. Triclophir is limited use in other countries because it is dangerous. If you get it in your eyes, it can permanently damage your eyes. It can damage your skin. It can cause bird shell eggs to get thin. It can destroy insects. So here we are as humans saying, let's throw herbicide on the soil that we've already degraded, and then we're going to blame nature that the soil's degraded when we're the ones that are degrading it. We don't need that herbicide. Leave the soil alone. Let nature and the worms and the beetles do what they're supposed to do. And I'm a nature lover. Every time I see ibis pecking in grass, I wonder, is it a grass that's treated with an herbicide, or is it somebody like me who doesn't use any? I have a garden that flourishes. I use 0 pesticides or herbicides. I use compost and nothing chemical, and my garden flourishes. And I agree with the gentleman that said, when you do replace these trees that were taken it down, in my view, in just such a horrible manner, they do need diversity because birds come to different trees. Birds eat berries. If you do the research, you can plant things that benefit not just the neighbor, not just the people, but that bring in the birds into the bird city. It's really simple, and there's many of us out there that know how to do it if people ask. But you have a council that, I have to say, I mean, I think you're getting educated through this, but you didn't know, and nobody asked. We're here to help. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Lori Zeman, 11800 Griffin Boulevard. This ordinance, this proposal was kind of sprung on us. I found out about it over the weekend. Same time that they were cutting down a pine on Griffin, who they said it was the county. I called the county today. They don't know anything about it. They said they'd get back to me. I called at 4:30 right as they were closing. They still didn't know anything about it. So in past, Biscayne Park has directed the county to fell pines on Griffin. I know this because I spoke to the superintendent of Miami-Dade County. Duncan was his name. He has since retired. That was 20 years ago. We've been having the same debate over these Australian pines that have existed in this neighborhood for 100 years. No saplings, no damage. Yeah, any tree can fall in a storm, and they do, and they will. Why is this hate on these Australian pines? It makes no sense, especially for people like Ron, like the Cools, like me. We've lived here decades, okay? So this ordinance, it says interference, no person shall hinder, prevent, delay, or interfere with the village manager or their designee, or any agent thereof while engaged in carrying out the execution, good word, or enforcement of this article. So if this was in effect in February, and Melanie and Vicky called the manager and said, hey, you were supposed to have these trees inspected. Oh, we did. They were lied to. We don't trust you, okay? We don't trust you because you've lied to us. You did this backhandedly. You did this in such a rushed fashion that we haven't even had a chance to catch our breath. We are still traumatized over what you did on Griffin in 2022, okay? You got to keep your trees in front of your house. Yeah, and I complained and I'm the crazy lady. They still have not replaced the tree that they felled in front of my house that I have videos was not rotted, okay? So I think I've said enough. You've all heard me on social media. Thank goodness we don't have the vilification on social media that we had when MacDonald Kennedy was here, because you couldn't say anything. You couldn't say anything against the commission or any decisions that you guys made without retribution from him and his husband. I'm so glad he's gone. I'm so glad to see people out here getting involved because, and this is not pleasant. I don't want to hear this lady, you know, with the scandal with the police and all that stuff. My heart is racing. I probably won't sleep tonight, okay? I don't want to be here. That's what you guys are for. And we put you in such a responsible, important position. Just do your job ethically and listen to the hearts and the minds of the people that have been most affected by this recklessness of felling of all those trees in one fell swoop. You know, I'm sorry I got like dramatic, but I can't help it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Christina Lane. I'm at 11209 Northeast 8th Court. I've lived in Biscayne Park for 15 years. I'm very happy to see that we'll have a workshop on the trees, and I'll be there. My immediate concern is the selection of the village manager. I understand, I may be wrong. I've been told that the interim village manager, Al Childress, is a candidate. I'm not sure about that. I'm here because I want to make sure that the candidates for village manager are interviewed in public. I would hope that the village commissioners will do everything possible to make the interview process and selection process as transparent as possible. I've seen, I don't know how many village managers since I've lived here. I know there have been several. And while I know that there's a limited role that they play and that there are parameters around what the village manager does, I also know from very like personal experience and just, you know, what it is to live in Biscayne Park, that for a village manager, character matters. And so I would ask that you include the residents as much as possible. My expectation is for the village manager to be transparent, to be honest, to communicate well, to have integrity. I seek a village manager with true leadership and vision. This village needs and deserves a manager who will help usher our community into the future with a clear and bold understanding of our historic legacy, but also our inherent value and the importance of building a future that is filled with resiliency, focused on sustainability, a community for our children, and for our children to be proud of, our children to return to, and to also continue to live in, and for our children to have a future in. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kate Davis, 1200 Northeast 11th Place. I'm also on the Sustainability and Resilience Board, but we haven't met in over a year or more because we just do not have quorum. However, residents as well as one of the board members' emails that came through, I saw that there was the issue with the trees. So I'm sorry I haven't had enough time to review it, but I did look over it pretty quickly. And I would request, I heard that there was a workshop in the last speaker. So I'd love to be involved in that. And I just want to let the board know that I am available personally, even though the board isn't meeting or, but I'm here to help in any way. I saw that the issue with the night crown herring. I'm an environmental consultant. That's what I do for a living. I'm a wildlife biologist as well as permitting. So The birds are protected under the Migratory Bird Act. So your contractor should not have removed any trees that have these birds in them. I'm happy to do any inspections for free on behalf of the village or assist with any type of regulatory questions or permitting questions. One of the big issues that why I came on the board was for tree protection. And we kind of started getting into that before the board fell apart. But one of the issues I did bring up, but never followed through with the city, the manager, was we had I'm looking at my notes again, this is kind of last minute for me, but we did implement into our code reference to chapter 18A of Miami-Dade County Landscape Ordinance Code. So the tree ordinance in the village, because we don't have our own, should be following that. So one of my questions is who is implementing that? Because as far as I'm aware, we don't have staff on site, arborist or landscape architect reviewing for that. So I didn't know if it was happening with the Planning and Zoning Board. And if it's not, then how is that happening here in the village? So the big thing with that is tree permits are required. Most of, the village is single family, and there's ways to get around with getting tree permits, but not if there's specimen trees. But one of the things is, the big thing for me is part of the development that's happening here and making sure that the tree replacement is happening per the county code, per our code. So you see these houses that are going in and they have certain requirements for landscape replacement that are required. We may not win the battle with the trees that are being removed on single families, but we can sure win the battle with new development and making sure that the trees are replaced. But inside of that new ordinance that's trying to be passed is 100% conflicting with that. So you can't dedicate tree management to the village manager. It has to follow the county and our code as well. So happy to go to the workshop. I'm happy to have sidebar conversations with any of you. I have lots of knowledge on the tree ordinance, but just wanted to come and offer assistance in my opinion on that matter. Thank you.
Sorry, what was your name again?
Kate Davis.
Sorry?
Kate Davis.
Thank you, Kate.
Escape.
Assuming the clerk has your contact information.
She is part of our Board of Sustainability and Resiliency. Thank you for coming.
Bob Anderson.
Bob Anderson, 11905 Northeast 11th Place. I'm going to be talking about on 14C on looking at possibly spending $30,000 a year so some of our residents can go over to Miami Shores to go swimming. I look at, if we have $30,000 a year to be spending, we ought to be spending on our rec center. Take a look at the recreation equipment that's over there that should have been replaced years ago. It's falling apart. It needs to be, we need to start spending money on replacing that equipment. It is so far beyond its lifespan before somebody gets hurt, when the kids get hurt. So I'm against spending money into another city until we solve everything in our rec center first. Thank you.
Janie Anderson, 11905 Northeast 11th Place. I just want to make sure I did understand correctly. The tree issues are moving forward to Parks and Parkway and then a potential workshop or special meeting, so it's not a tonight thing. Okay.
Correct, yeah.
Want to make sure. Okay, Art, thank you for your agenda item, and I certainly hope you get support. If commissioners get their concerns and questions answered prior to the meeting, it's not just that the meeting is going to go quicker. It's going to be so much more efficient and so much more productive. I don't understand waiting to the night of the meeting to parse and dissect every infinitesimal aspect. You're doing yourselves a disservice along with everyone else. Look at last month, the presentations alone, I think it was 2 hours they took. You lost the attention of the audience, couple of people left. You know, if the intent is, yes, to inform all of us, I'm thinking the Cliff Notes version will work just fine. We don't really need War and Peace. As far as Miami Shores, I appreciate your efforts, Veronica, but if we have $30,000, we have a rec center that I bet could put that 30 to extremely good use, because unlike Miami Shores, where a small percentage of residents will go, our rec center is hustling all the time. And so many things could use improvement. Frankly, I'd like to see all 5 of you much stronger advocates for our own rec center, because every year it seems to get shortchanged. My only quick comment, reference trees, would be whatever gets proposed, please be careful not to cross that line into micromanagement and government by committee, because that's a really fine line that seems to be getting crossed. Thanks.
More on the log cabin before we move on?
Evening, Anna DeLeon, 655 Northeast 115th Street. I just am here on behalf of the Parks and Parkways Board. I was chosen to come and just say we met this month and we were wondering what the status of our recommendations and report were, and I was attending to listen to hear. I'm very glad to hear about the collaboration that the commission would like to do with us. That's kind of what we were hoping for as well. And we look forward to collaborating together. Our next meeting is May 28th. For the public if they're interested, and then like we discussed, we'll follow up and go through that. And as a resident and a person on the board, I just ask that you continue to keep us in the conversations when it involves our board, not just the tree replacement, but any changes like the parks. I know there's the ongoing consideration and thought about what might happen with the park complex, as well as the log cabin renovation that was discussed at the last meeting. We are now a group of highly motivated individuals, and we're excited to move forward. So thank you.
Thank you.
That's it for the log cabin. We can move on to Zoom. Going once, going twice. Okay. All right. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone on Zoom that wants to provide public comment? If anyone wants to provide public comment on Zoom, please raise your hand and the clerk will ask to unmute you, but not seeing any hands. So, Madam Clerk, I know we have a number of emails that are from residents that could not make it, that wanted it to be read onto the record. Do you want to get started with that for us, please?
Okay. Mary Benton, to whom it may concern, Commissioner Huntington added a proposed ordinance to Tuesday's agenda that not only appears redundant, as Biscayne Park already has a tree care ordinance that qualifies the village to be a Tree City USA. But it is a step backward for Biscayne Park. This seems to have come out of the blue, as ordinances are usually workshopped and discussed by the commission, which did not happen in this case. Even more disturbing is that the authority and power section would give the village manager complete authority to remove trees without notifying anyone, and would prohibit interference from residents. Given the importance of trees in combating climate change, this ordinance is steep in the wrong direction, and I urge the commission to vote no. Christina Lane, 11209 Northeast 8th Court. Dear Biscayne Park Commissioners, I am writing to express my serious concern over the resident ordinance added on tonight's agenda regarding trees in Biscayne Park. Specifically, I do not agree with the ordinance because it gives complete authority to the village manager. There is no need for the ordinance to be added. Note that an ordinance such as this is usually given further process and discussion before being put into place, but beyond this, it is simply not necessary. I am much more in favor of the next steps that were worked out with Commissioner Amsler in collaboration with the broader community. I have a very personal stake in this issue as someone who was recently affected by the fallen Australian pine tree on 113th Street in January. One might think that I am in favor of removing all Australian pines from Biscayne Park. In fact, that incident affected my home and electricity more than almost anyone in the surrounding blocks. It knocked out my power for 2 weeks in simply 2 days and forced me to rewire my house when the fallen pine caused an electrical short that went all the way into the interior of my home and resulted in over $2,000 of cost. Yet, I took that opportunity at that time to do extensive research on Australian pines and came out in favor of keeping as many of these trees as possible in Biscayne Park and doing all we can to support the heron habitat. All this goes to say that I believe in the importance of community voices as well as research decisions. I disagree with this apparent power grab in the latest ordinance. Again, there is simply no need to add this ordinance. Please reconsider. Thank you for filling these comments. Nancy Davis, 11927 Northeast 6th Avenue. Good day. My name is Nancy Davis, and I am a longtime resident of Biscayne Park. I am unable to attend the commission meeting tonight, but I want to make you aware of my support for the movement to stop the decimation of the natural world in the park. I want to emphasize the word neighborhood because I see the rapid change that has been allowed here in recent years. Biscayne Park has traditionally been a small neighborhood in the middle of the mess of urban sprawl. Over the years that I have lived here, there have been many fights against the sprawl, many of which I have been involved in. I realize that as time goes by, there are decisions that are made to accommodate growth and human needs. I won't go into my actual thoughts about that, but I do understand that things change over time. However, the decimation of the natural habitat in this neighborhood is unconscionable. At the very least, I believe that the commission should focus on what benefits humans and the natural world in equal parts. Letting people build zero lot line McMansions and felling trees that house wildlife only benefits greedy investors. More than enough of that is going on here. Please think about the wildlife because of the long run, humans won't survive without the other species that inhabit our planet with us. Our greed and comfort should not be more important than the myriad other species that live alongside of us. Thanks, Nancy Davis. Dear Commission, our trees deserve better than being cut by the decision of the village manager at any time without resident input and with no recent assessment of their health and the effects of flooding, habitat loss, shade, and heat reduction. We do not need this ordinance that gives complete power to the village manager after to cut down trees at any time. The environment thanks you for considering that. Thank you, Denise. Denise Barros. Mayor and Commission, good evening. I read through your proposed public tree care ordinance and assume this is your response to rather loud public outcry when you cut down approximately 30 Australian pines. I don't think that nature-loving population were necessarily commenting about the loss of Australian pines because most of us understand that they are invasive and do not need to be removed. The problem with your past action was that so much habitat was removed all at once and without regard for the nesting night herons. This new ordinance sounds like more of the same behavior. Government is best when citizens are involved. The residents and neighboring communities appreciate that the wealth of Biscayne Park is its trees. Why not invite the public to participate rather than attempt to silence our voices? I think you'll find that by working with the residents rather than against, we can achieve a stronger community that values our greatest assets, the trees. If you find it necessary to rewrite this ordinance to include some of the wishes of the residents, I hope you will include a mandate for new trees to be at least 30% native and 100% Florida friendly as defined by the UFIFAS. Carol Respugnick, 1162 Northeast 105 Street. Moore, Joe Moore. Dear Commissioners, I choose to live in Biscayne Park in part because it is a bird sanctuary and a member of Tree City USA. I do not want to live in a concrete jungle. I want to live in a neighborhood that flourishes with wildlife, pollinators, and trees that support them. That neighborhood is Biscayne Park. But as of late, it would appear that the village is indiscriminately removing trees and wants to do so when there is wildlife actively roosting in those trees. I'm opposed to the ordinance on tonight's agenda, which would allow our village manager to decide when to cut down trees. It gives sole authority to one person, which I object to. It also prohibits interference from anyone, including us as residents who care deeply about our wildlife and canopy. Village managers come and go. We residents who love our Biscayne Park sanctuary remain. Miami-Dade County's urban forestry plan is in the works and a blueprint to achieve a minimum of 30% tree canopy coverage countywide to enhance climate resilience. Climate change is causing more flooding in Miami, and we must do all we can to protect our trees, who are our most valuable resource in combating flooding and carbon in our atmosphere. While I value native plants, even non-natives are doing this work as well as cooling temperatures. Replacement trees will take many years to show us these same benefits when there is no need. I've also heard about potential Garland 4 applications in the medians to treat the soil or stop Australian pine growth where they were removed. The herbicide possesses a dangerous risk to our health and that of our wildlife. Please seek alternatives to herbicide and pesticide use in our village. They do exist. Please also make the village manager interviews public after a selection is made. We as residents are very interested to be part of this, as it's such an important decision. I would like to make a request that my email be read as I am unable to attend this evening's meeting. Thank you for your consideration, Joe Moore, Biscayne Park resident.
Yep, okay. Thank you, Madam Clerk. All right, so
Can I make a comment on the Zoom? The link wasn't working, so I just want to be, make you guys aware that the link wasn't working. I don't know if anybody else was trying to get in, but the link says June 3rd as the date. So it took me a while to get in. So hopefully we didn't get anyone in the middle not being able to participate. We got to make sure our Zoom is right. This is not the first time it happens. And people, have to have the ability to come forward and say what they need to say.
Commissioner, it's a Zoom problem, and I tried to work it out, but I reposted the link on the app and redid it in the
It
calendar.
works when you send me the link by email,
that's
but
what-
not everybody.
But I sent that back to the calendar.
Okay.
Same link.
Jonathan, I have two comments real quick in regards to something that Barbara said. Number one, 2 meetings ago, I was adamant that I thought that the new manager should be the one selecting the new police chief. I said it here. Some disagreed with me, which is obviously their prerogative. But I was also informed, obviously, that our interim manager has all of the powers under the charter. And unfortunately, although I think it's completely wrong for him to make that decision, I mean, listen, at the end of the day, he may be the manager, but until we have a permanent manager, that person should be the one selecting. So that's my opinion. So I made it very clear in the last meeting. So that's still my opinion. And then a follow-up question to our attorney. There were several folks that came here tonight that said that the Dade County tree ordinance was sufficient for Tree USA. So is it your position that it is not, or that it needs to be, something needs to be added to that? Okay, so what is your position on that? Okay, so,
Looking at the Tree City USA website.
Mhm. Yep.
Viewed, they provide some sample ordinances.
Mhm.
Is the direction I was given.
Okay. Okay,
Off of that sample.
okay.
I
So before we move forward with this, I think we need to come to a conclusion whether or not it's sufficient. Because if it's sufficient, then that, it's going to move things along a lot faster.
based on my review of as it's been stated during this meeting, very detailed.
Mhm.
I would have to do some more research, but I would imagine that it would meet the requirements of the Tree City. The only other requirement that would be left for the village to do, which
Is the policy. Yeah. But they mentioned several cities that use the Miami-Dade County ordinance and our Tree City. So, okay. Okay.
like I said, the Miami-Dade County's ordinance is very detailed, much
Okay.
more detailed than the proposed one. And the proposed one would still rely on the Miami-Dade County ordinance.
Okay.
to a lot of respects. So
Well, let's find out. Thank you.
Great. Well, we're in the middle of commissioner reply to
I will
comments. So
comment on just,
go ahead.
I know we're kind of having discussion about the tree ordinance again. Trust me, I understand that it could be sufficient what Miami-Dade has and what we adopt in our code. But I feel this is an opportunity to clean up our code if we're going to address trees and we're going to address the tree issue. If you put tree into Muni code, 19 responses come up. So there are 19 different places where trees are addressed in our code. So if you're a resident and you have an opinion or you want to seek a idea what you want to do with your trees, there's 19 different places that it's talked about. If we're going to do a tree ordinance, even if we just say have a tree ordinance that says tree ordinance, we defer to Miami-Dade County Code. If you look under the natural resources preservation section of our code, it just says Miami-Dade County Code. It doesn't say 18A. So how is a person to know we defer to 18A when we don't list 18A there? We just list Miami-Dade County Code. So I think there's room for improvement, even if we reference Miami-Dade County Code for a lot of it, because it is robust. I've been through 18A, it's robust. But there's room to fix it. If the commission has the will to fix it, let's do it. If not, let's apply for Tree City USA right as we are. But I think we have an opportunity to leave it better than we found it.
Good. Well, I'm sure that we'll get a little bit more into the tree issues when we get to our workshop with the Parks and Parkway, and we'll give everyone an opportunity to be heard at that time too. So it'll be good to have another round of public interaction and feedback when we get to that.
If I can say
go ahead.
tonight, since we're ready, again, we should have put this in the discussion. This is why, because I think we have different views as to what needs to happen next. But if you ask me, I think we were part of Tree USA before. We fell out of compliance. We were because we had the requisites at some point in order to apply for it with what we've got. I'm not disagreeing with you that the ordinance might need a little bit of readjustment, but that was not the direction we gave the attorney. The direction was to work on Tree USA ordinance. So do we need it? I don't think we need it. We didn't need it before. So I do look forward for this workshop to put all the mindset of our residents, experts, that have kind of provided their hours for free to come forward and let us know what is expected. And then we need to decide how to better clean it up. But we have everything we need in the code now. I think, again, it wasn't because we needed a new tree ordinance in order to comply. We complied at some point. We fell out of compliance. It could have been, I think a resident wrote me about spend, that we were not paying the membership. I don't even know if, what is. And so at the end of the day, we did comply at some point, so we had it. Maybe the first, so this is a feedback to some of the comments I've heard. So the first call I gave after I received the draft was to the attorney, because that sort of what was drafted on the ordinance was sort of in opposition to everything I was thinking for. So I'm like, how come, this is not taking in considerations a lot of the things I discussed, and I thought the idea was to merge. We couldn't because of sunshine. So in essence, we can have conversations, or the conversations that the attorney has with the commission. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
But the issue was there was no way for me privately to collaborate with Commissioner Huntington's desires with regards to the requirements from Tree City USA and Commissioner Amsler, desires with regards to her ordinance. There's no way for me to privately, that's a sunshine violation. So for me to prepare an ordinance and then say, okay, just for example, Commissioner Huntington, I prepared this and now give it to Commissioner Amsler and ask Commissioner Amsler to revise it for me or make comments. I'm basically being an intermediary between their conversations, which is a violation of sunshine. So the only way to do this and parse this out is really at a public meeting that's been publicly noticed.
Today.
And like today or the workshop you're talking about, give me direction as to what you want me to draft or how you want me to revise the existing ordinance, if that's what the direction of the commission is. And I'll create the product that you all direct me to create. But
Yeah.
that's what you're.
And so I just wanted to put context to that as to how come this came along. Well, we have two different sort of visions of how this needs to happen. I don't think it's needed. I think we have everything in the code. Yet I do believe we need processes. I mean, Tree City USA, and I was so pleased to see you can't even move forward with an ordinance as it stands because it requires an SOP, which I have been talking for 2 years now. So we are required to put in practice certain standards. So it's not just saying we're going to do things, it's about how we're going to do things so that we don't go through what happened recently. So again, I just wanted to give that context as to how this came along. And again, I appreciate everybody that came forward. I do have questions about what Dory mentioned about what happened in Griffin with this Australian pine that was cut at, at the stump. Do we know anybody? Yeah, Griffin Boulevard from the county. I mean, they wouldn't just come in not letting anybody know and do that. Right in the middle of the discussion of Australian pines, it seems a little bit insensitive to do. So I would just want to know what happened. Isa, thank you for filling in for the manager, but I'm putting that on you to find out. And then I just, I'm not going to go into each one of that. I want to say thank you to Kate for being here. You are one of my next items to come along, actually. I know resiliency has not been touched as a board for a long, long time. I was here when it was one person not meeting quorum. He didn't even know how to get in or how to get into the meeting. That was months ago. And as I can see, we're still navigating the same issue. I was called by I told you guys this, to talk about resiliency. I didn't have anything to say. And it can be, because there's a law that was discussed, a law that was put in minutes, and I just don't know where it stands. And a lot of that has to do with the transition of management that we've had. And so I urge you to say thank you for putting your expertise and connect with our Parks and Parkways board. And hopefully you can be part of the meeting. Part of the soil treatment has a lot to do with resiliency, as well as many other projects that we presented, like solar. That still, I don't know where it stands. So that sort of wraps up my feedback.
So, Mr. Mayor, can I seek some guidance from the commission just on? So, right? With regards to ordinances, just to get an idea of what the commission's looking for. I figured you did. So when I'm given instructions to draft an ordinance, revise an ordinance, is it the commission's desire?
Sorry, can you try and speak into the mic a little bit better, please, if you can?
Close so I can
No, I know.
Is it, so when I'm instructed by the commission to either draft a new ordinance, revision to a existing ordinance, whatever it might be, is it the commission's desire for it to first come before you as a discussion item before first read? Because we did that at one point for a period of time, and then I got some, not from this manager, from the previous manager, I got some pushback from that. Did not want it as a discussion item, wanted it as a first read, and so it's whatever your preference is. I mean, I'll tell you, for me, it's easier to have the discussion first, so we're not doing a whole rewrite like we've done sometimes between first and second, but I'll do it however you all direct me to do.
I think we should have it as always have it as a discussion before, because it costs us money to do ordinances. So we can have a discussion, and then from the discussion, it might not
It's
come.
beyond,
During sec-
yeah, it's beyond that point at this stage for the budget itself, but it's about the fact that we hadn't had the opportunity even to revise ourselves. You guys are coming to see a draft we hadn't even talked about. This is the first time we meet to say, I don't agree with it. So why would we even put an ordinance for approval if half of the commission, even majority, says no? So I think it's just redundant. I think it's a waste of time to do it that way. I understand some ordinances might have amendments, and this might be a paragraph, a sentence, a correction, and that might come for two different times, for approval where discussions is open for us to talk about. But when it's a first ordinance we've never talked about before, I mean, it just should always come to discussion. And then, we all agree, check, move in next for approval, especially when there's no urgency whatsoever on this matter.
Okay, so can we come to an agreement, because we got a very long agenda now and it's almost 8 o'clock. So can we decide what we want to do here and just move forward?
I thought we already did that.
Okay,
I think so Mary and I said where we stand. The rest is on you, where you guys think we should go.
Completely fine with discussion items. My memory is that we came to the decision as a body to put this to first read last meeting. So this is, and the many times this has been said that I put this on the agenda. I didn't put any ordinance on the agenda. Commissioner doesn't do that. The manager and the village attorney do that. But I'm completely fine with doing ordinances by discussion first. That's fine.
Okay, so, Mr. Attorney, okay, thank you. You have the direction. Thank you. All right. Is there any other reply before we move on? No? I will say, I appreciate people getting in touch with us before the meeting via email and being here this evening. It certainly helps us do our job when we're hearing a lot from the residents. I just want to very quickly make a comment on decorum. We just obviously we just experienced an issue with decorum. It's never happened during my tenure, but we do have to uphold decorum. So when we say it's 3 minutes, look, I'm happy to let residents go a little bit longer. I want everyone to be passionate, to be involved. But sometimes, we do have to enforce the decorum rules, and that's what they're there for. So that's what that was. And it's within our rules, Robert's rules, to uphold that decorum. So I just want everyone to know that that's what we were doing. That's what we were adhering to. I certainly by no means am trying to stop anyone from providing public comment. So that's it. I just wanted to make sure that we addressed it. All right, so let's very quickly, let's try to, I know we moved number 9 to the bottom. Was there any commission reports?
Yes, I have a commissioner report.
Okay. We moved section 9 to the bottom, not section 8.
Good evening, fellow commissioners, village staff, and more importantly, members of our community. Thank you all for being here this evening and for your continued commitment to transparency, ethical government, and public accountability. I sit before you tonight with a deep sense of responsibility with a growing concern. Recent developments regarding decisions made by our interim village manager in coordination with our current village attorney, Mr. Bradley Wiseman, has raised significant ethical and procedural issues that I believe must be addressed openly and urgently. To begin with, I'm deeply troubled by the decision to allow a village manager to participate in the selection of a legal counsel tasked with investigating his own conduct. The action is not only inappropriate, it threatens the integrity of the entire investigation process. No one should have a hand in selecting their own investigator. It contradicts the basic principles of independent oversight, and it undermines the public trust in our ability to hold ourselves accountable. Equally concerned is the pattern that appears to be emerging. This is not the first time Mr. Weissman has been involved in questionable procurement decisions without proper commission oversight. For example, a prior incident, a private investigating firm was selected to examine the action of a former police chief. Again, for example, in a prior incident, a private investigative firm was selected to examine the actions of a former police chief, again without commission approval and with troubling connections. The investigative firm in that case was led by former colleague of Mr. Wiseman from the Fort Lauderdale Police Department, where he previously served as police legal advisor. Only after decisions have been made and funds allocated, apparently structured to avoid commission approval, did Mr. Wiseman accuse himself, citing conflict of interest. A similar process was followed with the current investigation into the interim manager. Mr. Weissman, again, in coordination with the manager, selected a law firm without first informing the commission, only later claimed conflict. Independent research has indicated prior to professional connections between the firm of Mr. Weissman's own office. To make matters worse, I received credible reports from village employees who stated that complaints of hostile work environment are not being properly documented or addressed. If accurate, these raise serious concerns on whether misconduct is being conceded rather than corrected. Mr. Weissman is our legal counsel, but has failed to respond to my repeated outreach on these matters. When he has responded, he's done so in conjunction with the manager, which reinforces my concern that he may not be acting in the best interest of this commission or the community as a whole. Furthermore, I am extremely alarmed by the proposed agenda item that would transfer the commission's authority to the interim manager concerning the issue of Australian pines, an issue with potential implications involving federal environmental law and keep concerns from our residents. The commission authority must not be undermined, particularly when the actions of the interim manager already generated significant public scrutiny. This accumulation of events is now deeply matter of poor judgment, is a breakdown in our ethic and procedural systems. As your commissioner, I believe we must act. I am respectfully calling for the following: a full and transparent disclosure of all circumstances surrounding the hiring of the attorney involved in the interim manager's investigation. This includes the terms of engagement, the rationale for the selection, and the decision-making process. I recommend immediate suspension of all investigation activities conducted by this attorney until the commission has the opportunity to review and publicly vote on the matter, and the appointment of an independent investigator selected directly by this commission through a sealed bid process managed by the village clerk. I recommend a minimum of 5 sealed bids to ensure fairness and transparency. This is not about assigning blame or casting criticism. It is about restoring the public trust and ensuring that we, as elected officials, are held to the highest standards of transparency, ethics, and accountability. To my fellow commissioners, this is the defining moment. Let us make it clear that we will not accept a government that occurs behind closed doors or decisions that invite proper oversight. Let's show our residents and their, let us show our residents that their voices, their concerns, and expectations of integrity will be honored. Lastly, I feel compelled to address a personal yet important matter. As a sitting commissioner, I've experienced conduct by this interim manager, Mr. Childress, that I believe raises the level of hostile work environments. I am aware of at least 2 such complaints involving Mr. Childress, including my own concerns. However, I have been told that because I am an elected official and not a village employee, there's no formal process available to address or investigate these claims. I have been advised that my only recourse is to raise these concerns publicly to an open forum, an approach that is both inappropriate and insufficient for handling these serious allegations. If the interim village manager treats the commission in this matter, I am inclined to believe that employees who have come forward with their own hostile work environment complaints. This lack of recourse reflects a troubling gap in our internal accountability system. and I urge this body to consider establishing a clear and fair process for addressing hostile conduct directed at commissioners and public officials. I intend to present this to the commission, my 2 formal hostile work environment complaints, which to date I have not been addressed by this village. I was advised by the attorney that the matters must be brought before the commission during a public meeting for proper consideration, which I am doing now. So I have 2 complaints that I will present to the commission. Thank you.
Sure.
So first and foremost, let me just start that Commissioner Samaria continues, as he's doing again today, to inaccurately state the facts. He's done it before and he's doing it again. I'm trying. Let me just start off by stating that once again, Commissioner Samaria is inaccurately stating facts. He's done it before publicly and he's doing it again. With regards to the village manager being involved in the selection of the investigator into the hostile work environment complaints that were filed against the manager, he was not. The village manager, Mr. Childress, was not involved in the selection whatsoever of the individual or the firm that was chosen to investigate the allegations that were brought against him. I don't even know. All right. So under your rules, under your own personnel rules, it specifically states that if an employment claim is brought against the manager, it is the village attorney's responsibility to investigate that claim. That's what the rules say. They don't say it's the commission's responsibility to investigate the claim. And there's a very good reason why it's not the commission's responsibility to investigate the claim. It's the village attorney's, which is mine. The reason why it shouldn't be the village commission's responsibility to investigate the claim, because now the claim becomes political. And the whole purpose of it is for it not to be political. It's for an independent individual to come in, investigate the complaints, and render an opinion. The firm that was hired was the firm by name of Bryant Miller Olive. That's a local law firm here. They have offices throughout the state. The way we got to Bryant Miller Olive was that I had spoken to some members of my firm and asked if they could recommend an individual who was capable of, of doing this type of investigation. Valerie Vicente, who's one of your former city attorneys here, and I had spoken. She said she had worked with the firm. She had worked with an attorney by the name of Denise Heacom, and that she was very qualified to do this type of evaluation. I asked around about Ms. Heacom, and I got nothing but glowing responses from other attorneys, and also was made aware of some other work that she had done. The issue then became to find out what the cost was going to be to the village to conduct this investigation. As you know, under your purchasing code, there are certain thresholds in which the manager has the authority to expend money, and or we have to go to the commission to seek approval of the expenditure of that money. In speaking with Ms. Heacom, she assured us that she would be able to, and barring something unusual happening, that she would be able to do this for $10,000 or less. That is within the manager's purchasing authority. That doesn't mean the manager in any way had any hand whatsoever in selecting Ms. Heacom to do the investigation. It was just under his authority, because I have no purchasing authority under your charter or under your code. So under the purchasing authority of the manager, he gave me the authority to expend that money to retain that firm to do the investigation. Now, this allegation that there's some relationship between Ms. Heacom or Brian Miller Olive and neighbors Giblin Nickerson, I would ask any of you to look at any of the firms that do governmental work and try to find that there's no relationship or some type of relationship where there's been cross-representation, representing each other. It happens all along. There are not that many firms out there that do government work and do this work. So what happens is, if Bryant Miller Olive, for example, has a client where they have an employment issue that comes up that they need an investigation, they're going to reach out to another government firm that does these things to see if they can step in and do it, because it's a conflict for them to do it themselves. That's all that happened here. So this allegation that the manager was somehow involved in the selection of Ms. Heacom and her firm is just quite frankly, the only way to put it, it's a lie. It's not true. It's not accurate. It's a complete misrepresentation of the facts. And again, this is not the first time this commissioner has done this. Imagine he's accusing us of, or accusing me of avoiding procurement and procuring Ms. Heekham's firm to do this. As I've just explained, under your purchasing code, under $10,000, the manager has the authority to expend the money and give permission to his designee, which was me, to expend the money. Again, he had no role whatsoever in selecting Ms. Heekham. His only role was to authorize the money to be spent as long as it stayed under $10,000. Yes, as Commissioner Samaria asked the last time he brought this nonsense up, yes, if Ms. Heekham would have came to us and said, look, the investigation is going to be much more extensive than I believe it was going to be, and I can't do it for $10,000. And by the way, I have to mention, when I was looking for firms, I was getting quoted prices anywhere from $500 up to $850 an hour. Ms. Heekham agreed to do it at a government rate for $225 an hour, which is very, very low for an attorney to do that type of investigation. I do these investigations for other jurisdictions. I'm doing one right now for a jurisdiction in Broward County, and I'm charging $425 an hour on behalf of the firm. So it was a very fair price. With regards to avoiding, with regards to the commissioner's allegation that we avoided the procurement, again, he doesn't know his own procurement rules. Because as I said, $10,000 threshold, the manager has the authority. With regards to professional service agreements, which is what this is, hiring Ms. Heekham's firm was a professional service agreement. Your code specifically exempts professional service agreements from needing to go out for bids. Why? Because when you're hiring an attorney, when you're hiring some type of professional service, a consultant, whatever it might be, it may not be the lowest bidder that's the best choice. You have a right to waive competitive bidding. Competitive bidding is not, it's not even waiver. It's not required under your code to move forward and engage in a professional service agreement. The professional service agreement with Ms. Heekham is a public record. Anyone can have it. It's filed with the clerk of, not the clerk of court, I'm sorry, with the clerk of the village, and anyone that makes a request for it is more than welcome to have it, and I'll be more than willing to provide it if anybody wants it. There is no secrets in that contract. With regards to me recusing myself, which this is just going on to the attacks by Commissioner Samaria is just amazing to me. Because Commissioner Samaria sitting there knows very well why, one, I recused myself from those investigations and why I can't tell you why. And hopefully in the next week, I'm going to be able to tell you why. And hopefully and not only am I going to be able to tell you why, but I'm looking forward to sharing it with all of you and explain to you why I had to remove myself. There was no conflict of interest with me, which caused me to remove myself. But there was something that was initiated by somebody on this dais that caused me to remove myself. And that hopefully will be resolved next week. And once it's resolved next week, I'll be more than happy to share it with each and every one of you, because again, it's another example of that man sitting there on the dais and lying. No, I don't need claps. I'm sorry. This is my livelihood. This is an attack on my person, and I'm not going to sit here and take it. And if this is my last speech in this village, that's fine. But the fact of the matter is, I'm not going to sit here and take this anymore. So we'll address my recusal when I can. Hopefully that'll be resolved next week, and you'll all know why I recused myself and stepped away from those investigations. And quite frankly, I can tell you, I did it because at the time, based on what was going on, which he knows about, it was in the best interest of the village for me to remove myself so that there were no allegations when those findings came out with regards to me having any influence in how those investigations took place. And let me just back up something else about Ms. Heekham. If Ms. Heekham was sitting in this room right now, I wouldn't even know she was here. I've never met her face to face. The only time I've ever talked to her is either on the phone or through emails when I was retaining her services to do the investigation into the hostile work environment allegations. The commissioner says that the hostile work environment investigations were not being documented or addressed properly. That again is a falsity. It's not true whatsoever. The investigations were initiated as quickly as we could. There was a process that had to be followed with regards to retaining the the investigators to do this hostile work environment complaint. I will tell you that Mr. Steele, when he initially filed his complaint, or when he sent that email on February 14th, I had a conversation with him. And as a matter of fact, I had a conversation with him and I was accused by the village manager of trying to side with Mr. Steele because I was having a conversation with Mr. Steele after he filed the complaint. It was my obligation to investigate it or initiate an investigation. So I had to speak to him about it. And I was informed by Mr. Steele that he had additional information that he was going to provide. So that made me hold off for a little while until I got the additional information, which he never provided. There was an internal, I will put, disagreement within the management as to how to proceed, which may have delayed the retention of an investigator, of Ms. Heacom, when it came to doing that hostile work environment complaint. But nobody ignored the complaints. Nobody hid the complaints. Nobody did anything other than what my obligation was to do, was to make sure that these complaints got investigated and got investigated by a neutral and detached individual who did not know any of the individuals involved in this situation, was not a witness to anything, and could independently look at this investigation and make a determination whether there was sufficient cause based on the allegations that were brought by Mr. Steele. Commissioner Samaria is claiming that I haven't responded to his outreach. I don't know what outreach he's talking about. I can tell you for certain that based on recent developments that have happened, that I'm not going to have any private conversations with Mr. Samaria whatsoever unless they're memorialized somehow by a recording or they're witnessed or they're in public. That I can tell you for certain will never happen again. However, I have no idea what he's talking about by me not reaching out to him, because up until recent history, if he reached out to me and had a question, I responded to it. He used to tell me that he was sending me emails and that that I'd never get. And then he would accuse me, or not accuse me, I'm sorry, he would accuse the manager of somehow circumventing his emails so his emails wouldn't get to me. I don't know how the manager was doing that. I don't know how the manager would even know he was sending me emails. But the fact of the matter is, I was never receiving the emails. So it's a little hard for me to respond to something that I've never received before. I'm gonna do this in the order in which the commissioner brought these things up. Now let's talk, and then I'll go to the investigation that's into that was into Mr. Steele, that was brought by Mr. Navarro. With regards to providing the authority of the manager to cut down trees, right now the manager has the authority to cut down trees. The manager runs this village. That's his job. He's the chief executive officer of this village. If a tree has to be cut down, it's his decision whether to cut down that tree. Whether you all like it or not, whether you want to change it, that's a different story. But right now, the way that works, it's the manager's ability. That's within his authority. That's within his job description, to decide whether or not a tree in the village has to be cut down. Now, when the commission becomes involved in it, and I'm talking about right now, I'm not talking about moving forward. Right now, when the commission would become involved in that is if it's a procurement issue. So obviously in the issue, and I'm not saying right or wrong, but the issue with all the pines that were cut down, the cost of that exceeded the manager's authority. So the manager had to come to the commission and get approval from you all to expend that money to hire that expert or the tree service and do the work. Whether the work should have been done or not, that's not what I'm discussing right now. I'm just discussing process, and I'm discussing the allegations that were brought by this commissioner. So there was no circumventing procurement. There was no giving the manager authority that he didn't have. I understand that the ordinance that's being proposed kind of reaffirms that the manager has that authority. That's something you're all not comfortable about. That's fine. We can change that. That's not a problem. But right now, as you sit here today, that's within the manager's authority to run this village. With regards to the commission, again, selecting investigators to do employment complaints, that's outside the scope of your authority. I'm sorry, but that is just outside the scope of your authority for the reasons why I've stated earlier. That authority is within, according to your personnel rules, is within the manager's authority if he's not the subject of the complaint, or within the city attorney's authority if the manager is the subject of the complaint. With regards to the hiring with regards to the hiring of Rick Maglione and Magnet Investigations to conduct the investigation that was initiated by former employee Roberto Navarro, yes, Mr. Maglione and I used to work together in the city of Fort Lauderdale. He was the police chief. I was his legal advisor. I was an assistant city attorney assigned to the police department as his legal advisor. I picked Mr. Maglione for several reasons. One, he had over 10 years experience involved in internal affairs investigations. He was an internal affairs investigator for years, did probably close to 100 internal affairs investigations. He was also the commander of internal affairs on 2 different periods of time for the city of Fort Lauderdale, where he commanded about 10 sergeants who conducted internal affairs investigations for a police department that had 535 sworn officers and approximately 250 civilian officers. So he had immense experience. He's very well versed in Chapter 112, dealing with police officers' Bill of Rights. He's a very thorough investigator. Sometimes I would say too thorough, but he's a very thorough, he's a very good writer. And he also has no idea who any of the players were, is not involved in Miami-Dade law enforcement, not involved in Miami-Dade politics, and was completely independent and was looking at this with a clean slate. I gave him no direction whatsoever on how to do his investigation, other than to provide him the 300 some odd pages that Roberto Navarro provided us as part of his complaint, and then provide him whatever documentation he requested from the village as part of his investigation, and information on how to contact present and former employees so that he could conduct interviews. Other than that, I did not direct his investigation in any way, shape, or form. Again, with regards to procurement issues, he agreed to do it at 100. I'm trying to remember what his rate was. I think he said 100. I think it was $175 or $200 an hour. 175. Thank you. He agreed to do it at 175 an hour, which I would suggest is a very reasonable rate. And I can tell you that he is probably over $10,000, but is not going to charge. He agreed no matter how many hours he worked, he would not exceed a total amount of $10,000. Again, within the manager's authority to purchase, to expend, money. So there was no circumvention of any ordinances, of any rules or regulations. And this concept that I have to go out and hire somebody that has no connection to me whatsoever, and I don't know whatsoever, makes no sense. If you all know what the Yellow Pages is? Well, for those of you that don't know what the Yellow Pages is, it was a big phone book with a bunch of numbers of businesses in it. Okay, that's what the Yellow Pages was. It's the new Google. So if I'm not going to find somebody that I know is talented and capable of doing the investigations that need to be done, and do them in the best interest of the village, and do them at a rate that the village can afford, and I don't break your coffers, if I'm not expected to do that, then I might as well just open the Yellow Pages or go into Google and say, employment investigation. Okay, you have the job, it's yours. And whatever product you get, whether it's good, bad, or otherwise, whatever their price is, you accept it, and that's it. And then there's no allegation whatsoever that I know the investigator, or I had contact with the investigator, or my firm knows the investigator, or I've worked with the prior employee. These allegations are ridiculous. I have no dog whatsoever in this fight between the hostile work environment that was lodged by Mr. Steele against Al Childress. And I can tell you, I don't know whether Mr. Steele will admit it or not, but I spent hours sitting down with Mark Steele and trying to help him and get through things in this village, and trying to help him how to reconcile his issues that he had with Mr. Childress, how to survive as a police chief in this village. And I tried all those things, and this is what I get in return for it. And I get it. That has nothing to do with any of this, but I just had to get that off my chest. I just have one more thing to say, and then I'll be done. I'm sorry? And I got to be honest with you. I'm just sick and tired of listening to these allegations that are being brought by Commissioner Samaria, which are totally baseless. They're not true. And quite frankly, if you all want me to step down, I'll be more than happy to step down right now, because I'm going to be 65 years old in November, and quite frankly, I don't need this nonsense. That's it.
Brad, listen, I can appreciate your detailed and your passionate response to what's been said here. Please.
The hostile work environment complaint that, or at least the one that I am assuming he's alleging that I've ignored, which is the one that I think you all got an email about, is from former Captain Lozano. I want to let you know, yes, he sent a complaint back on February 20th, 2025. He labeled it a complaint. He's labeled it hostile work environment, Manager Childress. He addressed it to Mark Steele. And I can tell you that I've read this complaint. Ms. Heecum has read this complaint. It is not a hostile work environment complaint. It doesn't allege a hostile work environment. All he alleges in this document is that he was a witness to an interaction between Mark Steele and Al Childress at the time when Al Childress was going to suspend Mark Steele with pay pending the investigation, the outcome of the investigation that was being brought because of the Navarro complaints. And that when we reviewed it, there's nothing to investigate in here. All he says is what he saw and that it made him uncomfortable. That is not a hostile work environment complaint. You know, maybe they need to rename a hostile work environment and what that allegation is. Because just because somebody's mean to you, somebody's not nice to you, my manager doesn't like me, my boss is mean to me, yells at me, that is not a hostile work environment complaint. The complaint has to be pervasive, it has to happen frequent, and it has to, and I'm paraphrasing for time's sake, and not only that, it has to be based on some immutable trait by race, religion, sexual preference, whatever it might be. But that has to be the basis. And there is nothing in Mr. Lozano's memo that he wrote to Chief Steele that alleges any of those things, and there was nothing to investigate. So this is what we hid, by the way. A complaint that's not a complaint that had nothing to do with anything. And I also want you, last thing, because it's just all coming back to me, is when Mr. Steele resigned, he was already under investigation. And the reason why I know that is because this whole incident that Lozano is talking about is when Al Childress brought Mr. Steele into his office and handed him a document which stated that you're under an administrative investigation and that you're suspended with pay and that you're to go home pending the outcome of the investigation. And once the investigation is done, we will notify you whether or not any disciplinary action is going to be taken. So Mark Steele, when he resigned after he was informed that he was placed under investigation and suspension. That's all I'm going to say.
I have something to ask Jonathan after you're finished.
I think that's
Good?
yeah.
So I just got a quick question for Brad. So I just read over the hostile work claims from Commissioner Samaria, and there's obviously some very serious allegations in this. So
There is.
my first question is, I've never heard of a boss filing a hostile work environment against an employee. That's the first part. So what recourse is here that can be done with this from a commissioner standpoint?
You're correct. It's very rare for a hostile work environment, a complaint to be brought against by a boss who is subordinate. It can be done. There are circumstances where it can be done. The problem with, and I had this discussion with the commissioner, the problem with his hostile work environment complaint is he is not an employee of, you all are not employees of the village. And I know the commissioner said, well, I get money and I get 1099, so I must be an employee. No, what you get according to your code is you get a stipend for costs. If the village is 1099ing you, I'd have to defer to Paul as to why that's a 1099, but okay. But it's not salary. It's a stipend for costs for being a commissioner. So, well, I can't address it. You're not
this is
you're
not
an
a back
elected
and forth.
official, you're not an
everyone.
employee of the village. So the only thing that can be done, and this is what I explained to the commissioner, is if the manager is not treating him the way he feels it's appropriate, he should bring it up to the commission and address the commission with his concerns and ask the commission to impose some type of sanction on the manager for his behavior if the commission believes that's fit.
This is bringing me,
That could
this
be
is,
anything from, you could suspend him, you could reprimand him, you could terminate him.
this is bringing me flashbacks of Mac and Chris. I'm getting Chris and Mac flashbacks right now. Go ahead, sorry.
So this is, well, all right. I think that the reasonable course of action at this point is we have pending investigations that are concluding. We have pending investigations that are concluding sometime soon. And I think that there's been enough back and forth between the things that have been said and the things that have responses to those things that based on this coming to us in a report, this is not coming to us in a discussion item, this is not coming to us in a recommendation for action, this is a commissioner report. So I don't think that there is anything for this board to do at this point.
I just couldn't sit here and let him say the.
I understand. I understand. I want us to have a very clear path forward here. This was brought to us in a commissioner report. We've had extensive discussion over it, even though this is not the time or the place for it. It was brought up. It's been responded to. And I don't think there's any further action for the commission to take at this time. If there's something further based on what we've heard, it needs to come to us in a formal discussion item. But I've heard a lot about it already, and I've heard, and I know that we have the conclusion of some of these investigations that are the subject of the items that we discussed here. And I don't think that we can take, I don't even think we can take any further action until we get that information, because that's going to provide clarity, I think. So that's how I feel about it. I think that this has kind of been, I understand why it's been brought up, but I don't know that this has been brought up in the right place. And based on what we've heard in response, I don't think there's any further action to take on this item at this time. And I would ask the commission if there's any differing opinions, understanding that Commissioner Samari has brought this. I have a feeling his opinion will differ from mine, but I would ask the commission if there is any action that you all would like to take outside of what I've recommended.
I don't know what action we can take.
I do have a proposal. I mean, what we say, either you are a subordinate or, you're the boss, or it doesn't matter. I mean, we talked about positions here, who reports to who to say what. What we say matters. The words carry value. How we behave as commissioners have the same sort of impact as how the manager behaves as a manager. We all have a role to play, and we all have information in front of us to do due diligence and read things and prepare and come with all of that in mind. I don't take lightly the accusations that were done, but what I would say is I will bring it as a discussion items after all the stuff sort of comes out in terms of what the pending investigations say, because I want to understand where this is coming from, and that's taken so much of our time already for today. Mr. Samaria, if this is something in relates to our attorney, that it's in any way, miscommunicated or, not in any way puts the pressure to our legal team, which has been with us for a long time, we need to talk about that.
Mic isn't on.
Talk about my second complaint that I filed in reference to the Easter hunt, which
Well, then I think,
that's important. And I also called the attorney right afterwards. And to this day, it's 2 weeks? He still hasn't responded.
I told you.
this, all right, I think, look, this is enough back and forth on this right now.
Yes.
We've spent a lot of time on it. We've heard from the commissioner, we've heard from the attorney responding to each and every allegation that has been made here tonight. And I think pending the conclusion of the investigations, I think this needs, if the commissioner believes that there's something that has not been discussed, I think that needs to come on a discussion item.
I got something else I want to say. Guys, listen, I think we've talked more than enough on this topic. We have a very serious issue in front of us, which is the manager selection. We are certainly not going to get to it at this point. And I will tell you that several of those, we have some great candidates on there, and some of them are going to fall away because we're going to lose them. They're going to get jobs. And if we're serious and we want to hire a manager, we need to move on this, and we are not going to get to it tonight.
Yes.
To me, this is completely inappropriate because the priority is the village, not any individual up here. So we need to move on, and we need to get to the manager selection process.
I agree.
I completely agree. I
Right.
don't think there's any action we can take at this point. I will just say as a fair warning to my fellow commissioners that this is a pattern, Commissioner Samaria. He attacked my livelihood. Now he's attacking the village attorney's livelihood. And it seems like a pattern. If you don't agree with what he says, you could be next. And that's disturbing. And I just want you all to be aware that this is becoming a pattern with him.
Understanding and acknowledging that we've heard from both parties, we've heard allegations, we've heard a response from our attorney. I think we need to close the door on this for the time being. And I think we need to move on, without turning away from what we've heard. You know, we can acknowledge that we've heard from both parties and that we're not just overlooking this, but we do need to move on. We need to move on. I don't know if there's any other commissioner reports, but
I had mine. I'm passing because we need to just keep going.
I agree. Let's go on to our consent agenda then. Do I have a first and a second to approve the consent agenda as it's been amended?
Motion to approve consent agenda.
In a second?
Second.
That is, all in favor of the consent agenda as it's been amended?
Aye.
Aye. All right. 10C, 10D, 10F, 10G, and 10H were all pulled. So let's just start with our 10C right away because we don't have any ordinances any further. So let's start with our 10C, which is Resolution 2025-27. Brad, could you please read it for us yeah, I'm sorry. 10A, 10B, 10E.
10E.
I don't have us having removed 10E. Correct. No, that's all right. No, it's okay. 10C, 2000, Resolution 2025-27.
Yes, a resolution of the Village Commission of the Village of Biscayne Park, Florida, approving an agreement between the Village of Biscayne Park and In Alignment Consulting LLC for as-needed government coordination, municipal support, and comprehensive project services, authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement and to do all things necessary in furtherance of this resolution and providing for an effective date.
Thank you, Brad. Do I have a motion and a second to move the resolution to discussion?
Motion to move to discussion with limiting discussion to 3 minutes per commissioner.
How many? I'm sorry?
3 minutes per commissioner.
Do we have a second on that motion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Commissioner Amsler, I know you wanted to move this from consent, so maybe you want to just let us know.
Yes, so for me, we have two items we're going to go today, which are consultant firms to provide support for the manager. One of them comes in the shape of $25,000. The other one comes in the shape of $15,000. I have questions related to the contract specific. One of the questions was in terms of who the village is when we say the village. And I spoke with Brad a little bit earlier as to how do we hinder a little bit on that, meaning we have to say, I don't know if definitions, because there's two different contracts.
I think that was a mistake. So in the definitions, it says village manager, and it identifies the village manager as the chief administrative officer of the village. Where it says village, it should say village manager. Just reading through it.
Okay. Hold on. Yeah. All right. So, and the definitions, yeah, village manager, the chief administrative officer, because if you read along the entire document, the powers are about the village. And I want to make sure that it states the village is the village manager. So the one signing on this and behind in terms of accountability as well is on the village manager.
Make that correction.
Thank you. On the consultant side, do we have a specific name as to who's performing this? It could be a number of individuals who are going to be put in this contract. They all are going to be subject to public record. So I'm wondering if that is there is a way to get access to that, or is not needed because we put as an LLC and then anybody can come and.
You're asking if there's a specific consultant?
Yes.
This was the manager's item. I'm not really familiar with the. Oh. Okay.
No, we're in alignment consulting, right?
So they're on Zoom. They can address whether it may be a one-person firm. I'm not sure.
So that's why I wanted to understand, because in the definitions, it says the consultant. So who's liable for public record, for example?
The consultant, if you look at the top paragraph, the opening paragraph, the consultant is basically the LLC, the company.
So
So
anybody,
It's the company that's responsible and any representatives of the company that are doing work for the village.
okay, so who would provide access to the email? It says here that we would provide access to email, right?
Well, yes, that the consultant needs an email, a village email access. So
So would we have, I'm trying to understand whether we're gonna have, we can't have an LLC as a person, right? So who's coming in and out of the village? Who has access to, on behalf of the of the village will be an email? You know, is it one person? Is it three people?
maybe we can ask the consultant if they're on. I'm not familiar with the company.
Yeah, I'm here.
So are there more than one employee in your company, or are you?
So if you look at the qualification statement that was provided with the agenda item, you
Yeah.
would see David Brown and Christina Brown.
What's that? I'm sorry, I didn't hear last
David
part.
and Christina Brown.
Okay, so there's two people.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you both will be getting email and access to the village on behalf of the manager.
Yeah, and it would just be a village email. The reason we do that, like with every other city that we work with, you guys own the email, you have access to your email. We just use it when we need to do the work that you have asked us to do. So if you ask us to, work
So
with,
are you getting a village email address so that you can, is that what you're talking
yeah,
about?
all
So that would
public,
be-
all
right, so-
public record stays with you guys.
Right, so it would be so the email could be, it could be in Align Consulting at
No,
biscayneparkfl.gov.
The way we do it, like in Ball Harbor or Indian Creek Village, it's pro grant or something like that, like an alias of some sort that you guys name at biscayneparkfl.gov. We have, you give us access to that, and then we use only that to communicate with you all and through you all on behalf of you.
That would resolve the public record.
Yes, that's why we do it.
Makes sense.
Yeah, we don't use our personal email for anything outside of our invoices and contracts like between the business and the village. But outside of that, any work for you guys is conducted 100% through your email, so that the minute that you don't want to work with us, you still retain access to all your records.
Okay. I had another question on 2.4 consultant responsibilities. The consultant shall provide status updates on assigned tasks as requested and proactively notify the village of any issues delayed. I would ask that there is an ongoing project status with the commission as well. We currently have different departments provide status to us on a monthly basis. So on any sort of responsibilities that the manager decides to hire you guys, I would appreciate if that be considered as part of a report included to the commission.
So are you asking that the consultant make the reports directly?
Either the consultant or the manager himself, but through the services provided by the firm.
But I mean, it would be the manager's responsibility generally
To
keep
do
the
that.
commission advised of any projects.
Okay, so it would be with them, not
So-
here.
So yeah, so if the consultant is working on a project,
Got it.
it would be the manager during the manager's reports and through letters to the commission and whatnot to explain to the commission the progress of whatever that project is based on the information that they get from the consultant.
Okay. All right, that's clear. The consultant, and then I'll go into 2.47, I believe. The consultant shall not incur financial obligations or enter into bidding agreements on behalf of the village unless expressly authorized in writing by the village manager or approved by the village commission. I'm not comfortable with or approved by the village commission. I think if anything, it's the village manager, but if we want to include the commission, should be and.
Reason why it's or is depending on what the financial obligation
Yeah,
is.
the amount of the,
It may require commission approval, say the
Correct.
cost is over manager's purchasing. That's why
Perfect.
it's one or the other.
I could give you an example. I don't think I would be doing anything like that for Biscayne Park, but in some other cities, they sometimes wanted me to sign up for like a membership or something like for project tracking or something like that, or grant tracking, different things that I provide to different cities. And then if I pay the membership of $75 a month or whatever it is, whatever the subscription is, they'll authorize it and then I just bill it through the invoice. But I don't see that happening for Biscayne Park. I don't think you need anything like that. From what I've been advised, it's just help here and there as needed with procurement preparing RFPs or ITBs and working in coordination with the attorney for all the legal reviews of that and making sure that the scope is being interjected into those bid documents correctly so that you guys have no hiccups when it comes to procurement.
Okay, and then when it comes to the different types of a project, so on the hourly rate, if we go, it's 4.1 amount of payment?
Yep.
Yeah, so it's $75 an hour, $100 an hour. There is a difference to be considered whether you're workshops, train, and basically engaging with other agencies. And however, the total would not exceed to $25,000. So what I am not understanding it is at what point does the company come forward with a scope of work and a number of hours to specify by project? So say we have a bidding going on right now to, I don't know, rent trucks and that is a bidding process that your guys are going to be in charge of. That project might take $5,000 because of the hours that require. So I'm trying to understand if I'm going to receive a $25,000, and June say it wasn't enough because we had to go through more procurement services. How do you are able or not able to estimate hours for work?
We track hourly, and from experience, I can tell you that we would never bill that much for any type of service like that. So on average, if we're doing like an RFP or an ITB and we're coordinating that process, it's, maybe $2,000-$3,000 here or there, depending on what it is.
I'm sorry,
but
what's that? Maybe $3,000 what?
depending on what it is, if we're running the whole cycle all the way through. So we do not estimate overall by task how much it's going to be because we really can't assess that early in advance, but we go based off what we know we've done with other cities, depending on what it is.
Mr. Mayor, if I will, we're at 44 minutes, 45 seconds.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm going to keep asking the questions I have to ask. This should require probably prior approval in my end, I think, or the way I see it, by the village manager. So I feel more comfortable with having some sort of an estimation by project, so that we would know how many.
We cannot do that, and I will not offer that. I'm sorry.
Is that something how you would typically work with supporting other municipalities?
Correct. I don't put that into any of our contracts because we can't operate like that. So.
Got it. All right, that answers my main question. I appreciate you. I have more comments on the content of the contract, but I would leave it to that.
Okay. Rest of the commission, any other questions for the contractor? She's with us. None? Okay. All right. So for resolution 2025-27, do we have a motion to, oh, we already have a motion to approve. I'm sorry? Yeah, correct. So all in favor of the approval of the resolution?
Aye.
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 No.
Okay. Ms. Brown, thanks so much for being with us tonight. We appreciate your attendance and your ability to answer some questions for us. Thank you very much.
No worries. Thank you, guys. Have a nice night.
You as well. Thank you. All right. So our next resolution is going to be what was formerly 10D, and that's resolution 2025-28. Mr. Attorney, would you please read this one under the record for us?
Yes. A resolution of the Village Commission of the Village of Biscayne Park, Florida, approving an agreement between the Village of Biscayne Park and Yolanda Aguilar Consulting, Inc. for consulting and administrative services relating to American Rescue Plan Acts funds, authorizing the city manager to execute said agreement and do all things necessary in furtherance of this agreement and providing for an effective date.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a motion and a second to move this into discussion?
Motion to move into discussion, limiting discussion to 3 minutes per commissioner.
I second it.
Okay.
Hopefully we abide by that.
Okay. And all in favor of the motion as has been proposed by Commissioner Huntington?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. I believe we have the consultant here with us. Hi there. Would you mind just in case there's any questions, please?
Didn't you guys just vote?
That was just on the motion to move into discussion with the conditions
sorry.
that were.
Got it. I'm sorry, I missed
Commissioner Huntington, no problem.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Not this time. Good
Evening.
evening, Mr. Mayor.
After
members.
everything you've heard, I'm sure it's, that was a lot to
I
take
will
in.
make one comment because I'm usually very forthright. I know that you are in the process of your commencement process with selecting a village manager. I served 29 out of 40 years in the city of West Miami as the city manager. I'm probably the longest serving city manager in the history, I think, in the state of Florida. It's a really rewarding position, but it is a very difficult position because you have to answer to different people and you have to answer to the public primarily, like some of you have said. We are the bosses of this commission is the community. But I have to tell you that the profession, and that's one of the reasons why I decided that after 40 years, it was my time to move on. Not because I couldn't continue to do it, but I believe that the profession is under siege. I really believe so. Because I think there is somehow, some way, there's a lack of understanding as to where certain rights begin and where certain rights end. And I, for one, I have to tell you that I consider myself very lucky. But sometimes in life, when you say no and you step on somebody's toes, it's mistaken as a personal conflict, and it shouldn't be. Because sometimes the job of a manager is to protect the commission from themselves. And it's the hardest thing to do. I did it day in and day out. Sometimes I was in a popular mode, if you would, and some other times I had commissioners who were upset at me. And then they understood over time the reasons why we said, no, I think we cannot accommodate your request at this time. And that's hard because these are my neighbors. I live in the city of West Miami. These are my very neighbors that I have to say no to. So I encourage you as a former manager and as a person who's deeply rooted into, invested into my community, I encourage you to work with your manager in good faith so you can be able to have positive outcomes. And that's just my advice to you. It has a way of affecting people in a more positive fashion.
Well,
That's all on that.
Well, we appreciate your insight,
Thank you,
particularly
Mr.
with your
Mayor, for
experience.
allowing me to speak.
Great. So, understanding that we are trying to make some progress, is there any introduction or anything that you'd like to give us, any context with respect to the item that we're discussing right now?
Basically, I came to, I was contacted by Manager Childress, whom I have known for over 20 years in the management industry, in the city manager industry, and I highly respect Mr. Childress. He advised me he had accepted an interim position here at the village. And so all of a sudden he came to find out that the ARPA funds, as we know it, were possibly in jeopardy. So he brought me in to see if I can find out where we were at, where the village was at. And I say we because I have an investment in this and I've made it my personal business to and professional business to help the village with moving forward to securing the ARPA money to be tied to the projects that either the village has accomplished and some others that are in the pipeline. So I was asked if I could look deeper into the status of the ARPA money, and I did. I've spent about 35 to 40 hours since I became engaged into accessing a very difficult portal, attending webinars here on site and some in my home office, speaking to the Florida League of Cities, speaking to your city attorney, speaking to your financial manager and the city manager on a daily basis. It's too early to tell. I want to say that I am very cautiously optimistic that the village is now moving in the right path to making sure that the dollars that have been spent in these improvements are consistent with the use of the ARPA money. I think tonight what you have before you is the approval of my consulting fees. I commit to you that I will continue to work very diligently through your manager's office to make sure that we make a positive impact and that, we can move forward in, reshifting the uncertainty into a position of certainty with the use of ARPA money.
So just to be clear, this is money that we received, right? And that we didn't provide the proper documentation
So-
over the years, right? Is that correct?
We're still in. the
Fact
consultant,
finding.
The manager, I'm sorry, the consultant, the manager and the finance manager, Paul, we're all still kind of looking at this and trying to work through this and kind of figure out where the village is. So I would just kind of advise at this point, if we not start opining or really discussing what the status of the funds is, because that's really what you're retaining the Ms. Aguilar for, so she can assist the village in determining really what the status of the funds are, what the village is, whether the village is in compliance or has been in compliance with the filing requirements, and then assist if there's a need for an appeal process to assist with that appeal process. Well, can't think of the word, but a joint
Fact
effort
finding, we
between-
got to do a lot of fact finding.
Yes, a joint effort between myself, Ms. Aguilar, Mr. Winklejohn, and the manager, so that we can kind of give you some better solid information instead of kind of guessing or speculating as to where you are. And I just would be concerned about putting something on the record that may somehow affect that outcome at this point.
And the only thing I did want to put into the record is the village was required to fulfill logging into the Department of Treasury portal and reporting on April 30th as to the activities of the projects, and we met that deadline. So so far, so good. I think we should be in a position as soon as the manager gets back from vacation to have a sit down with him and see how we move forward and what issues we need to raise, if any, with the Department of Treasury. But we're working hard.
Okay, well, thanks very much for the context and the introduction. Go
Thank
ahead and
you.
ask the commission if they have any questions for you or any questions about the agreement of the resolution.
Thank you, sir.
No, I don't have any questions.
Can I?
Go ahead.
Thank you. So thank you for your help. I got introduced through the phone the other day, so I appreciate you going behind this. My concern with the agreement is that as after the fact that has been initiated. I'm not a big fan of having contracted vendors in any capacity to come for the commission for approval or anything that has prior already commenced. That happened with the minutes as well. We put together a contracted vendor because we needed it, and then we need your help. But I've never been of approving things. More so when I hear you say that we've already submitted some information on behalf of the village, I would ask if legal has been involved. And my requirement would be that the contract states that legal needs to be involved whenever anything sort of in any capacity is presented. I don't know if you've been in these conversations. Yeah.
Sal, you and I talked earlier today.
Okay.
We had a conversation about that. I've been involved in some of the discussions. There was a meeting with is it the National League of Cities?
It was a Florida League of
Florida League of
Cities.
Cities, I'm
It's a
sorry.
department of research that the Treasury has partnered up with to help municipalities see their projects through.
Yeah.
Obviously, I was not, we had a discussion about this. I was
Yes.
not privy to that meeting, but Ms. Aguilar and I had spoken, and I'll be involved in those meetings moving forward, so that, we're all on the same page. We all know what the status is. If you call one of us to ask us a question, we'll all be able to answer that question. So there won't be any issues. We have talked about that.
We have.
Hey, Brad, just quickly, I know you stopped me from asking, yeah, you did, but wait a minute, but it specifically outlines every detail in the backup and the memorandum as far as how much money we received, what records were not provided, blah, blah, blah. So it's in the public record, and yet you didn't want me to ask the question, so I'm a little confused as to why I couldn't ask the same question that's in the backup.
Well, I guess you could. Look, I can't stop you. All I can do.
No, I listen, I'm just saying, if it's in the backup, right? It's clearly stated in the backup what we've received, what we didn't do.
Yeah, that wasn't my choice. I just don't want, my concern is that we start we start expounding on that. And I just, everything, this is a public record. And I don't want, my concern is I don't want something, if we end up having to go to an appeal or have any asks of the Treasury Department, that nothing that's said here gets misconstrued somehow or misapplied, and that somehow.
Got it. So if anybody wants to know what questions I had, just go to the backup and just read the backup. It's there.
Thank you. It was basically, just for the record, I wrote a progress report memo to the attention of the interim city manager, advising him when I accepted the role, what steps I had taken to immediately dig into the issues involving the $1,535,000 that the village received from ARPA funds. Obviously, what has been spent, and I know Paul is doing a lot of research himself to come up with the financial figures, but we're not there yet. We are very hopeful that this will resolve itself, but I don't want to stand here today and tell you this is done, this is a done deal, it's resolved, the village is now out of the woods. You've had some lack of continuity in your administration in the past year, so we're just trying to piece what happened since the 2021 disbursement of the ARPA money to the village, where we're at now, and complying with requirements, reporting requirements to the Department of Treasury, so that any discrepancy can be looked upon with a set of, call them good faith set of eyes, because we are complying with their processes. Okay? You're very welcome.
So my other one relates to the policies. I just want, again, because this work has begun prior to the approval of the commission tonight. I was wondering if due diligence was done in terms of providing all the certificates for insurance prior to start work, and if not, a commitment that it could be done ASAP.
I believe I may have sent Mr. Childress my professional liability certificates. I am insured. I pay for a yearly policy, and I am insured for $500,000. I believe my policy for $1 million expires now. I'm trying to get coverage for the same amount, but the carrier is offering a $500,000 policy. I am licensed. I have a local business license with Miami-Dade County that I renew every year, ever since I opened up my consulting firm. And I also have a home occupational license from the city of West Miami, where I reside.
I appreciate the contract says before any work under this agreement is performed at any time upon request, consultation furnished to the village, certificates of insurance evidence in the minimum required coverage and shall appropriately endorse, blah, blah, blah. So I wanted to make sure that that gets addressed.
Yes,
Again,
ma'am.
this started before the approval of this commission, which I don't feel comfortable with, but I appreciate you.
I am happy to submit my certificate of insurance and licenses also to your city attorney and to your financial manager.
As it should. Thank you so much.
And to all of you, through the office of the manager or the attorney. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you. If there's no further questions on the agreement or for the consultant, we'll go and ask for a vote on resolution 2025-28. All in favor of the resolution?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. All right, so our next, the next three all relate to the minutes. So let's just start with 10F, as that's the first one up.
Yeah.
Um,
10F.
Yep.
So 10F and 10G, I chose, both of them, I have comments in regards to what it says, but I think because of due of time, I'm happy to sit with Pamela later on and just make some notes. There's missing information. I mean, we had a meeting, this was an item, we talked about the minimum required information in it. I don't see it, so Pamela, I'm happy to put myself, in a phone call to talk about those two. In relates to 10H, if we can move along.
Oh, do it very quickly for
Yes.
10F and 10G, are you recommending that we table it for the time being?
Yes, please, to the next agenda.
Well, let's just address those two now. Is there any, do we have agreement from the commission to table F and 10F and 10, what was previously 10F and 10G, so that the commissioner can provide some notes, until the next meeting?
I have no problem tabling that.
Yes, that's fine.
Okay, all right. So we have consensus on that
Okay?
for 10F and 10G to move. All right, so 10H would be the next one.
And then 10H, I don't know if you'll receive an email from Shante, used to be our former clerk prior when Mario Diaz was here. She's claiming a lot of these minutes were already provided and already done and recorded. So I don't know which ones are which. Before you answer, Pamela, I just want to take the list in here and understand if anything, and then we can look into what needs to be pushed for approval.
Okay. What Shantae did not understand was there were minutes that for workshops that were not done because we generally don't do minutes for workshops. Don't take any action. The vendor who Mr. Childress hired did minutes for those workshops that included dates that Shantae was here as the clerk. So that's what she saw as minutes that were done during her time that she didn't think I don't know how to explain it to you other than the vendor did minutes for 2023 workshops that were during the time that Ms. Bingham was the clerk.
So I think what I would want to have is a confirmation as to which minutes were up to what date, there was a switch.
I wouldn't know that, Commissioner, unless I sat down and had a meeting with the vendor and Ms. Bingham. And if you saw her email, she
Yeah.
does not communicate with me.
Okay, no, I didn't know. So guys, I'm gonna approve the minutes as they are. I'm not putting, I just wanted for the record to be noted that that was already paid at some point to a vendor, ex-vendor that reached out to us saying that some of the stuff has already been done twice. To what extent, I'm still not clear as to, which months are happening twice or not. So I'll approve them because they're here and we need to move forward and we need to make this a record. It's been a year. But I'm not happy to have a vendor email us saying, you've already paid for this, I've done it, it shouldn't be here. And then, what happened to what we'd approve at that point? Do you have two records now on a minute? I don't know. So I'm hoping there is, and I request this to the manager, we have to have a list sort of what's pending and identify what needed to be done. But it was a bit all over the place. Again, I want to move forward with this. I will pull those remaining, the latest one, because I have comments on that. I mean, and the rest, I'm okay.
Okay.
Yes, motion to approve.
Motion to approve our 10H, the minutes that are listed under what was previously 10H.
Right.
Are there any other question or comments on 10H before we move forward?
Second.
We have a second? Okay. All in favor of approval of 10H?
Aye.
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 Aye. Okay. So our remaining resolution, 12A, we no longer have any ordinances. 12A, which is 2025-30. I know Paul is here with us to address any questions that we may have with respect to this resolution. Mr. Attorney, would you please read our resolution 2025-30, please?
Mr. Mayor, a resolution of the Village Commission of the Village Biscayne Park, Florida, relating to the collection and disposal of solid waste within the village for fiscal year 2025-2026, establishing the estimated assessment rate for solid waste service against assessed property located within the Village of Biscayne Park for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2025 through September 30th, 2026, directing the preparation of an assessment roll, providing for public hearing and notice thereof, and providing for severability and providing for an effective date.
Thank you, Brad.
And you have to set dates as well.
I'm sorry?
You have to set dates as well.
Okay. All right, Brad, thank you. Do I have a motion and second to move the discussion to, I'm sorry, move the resolution to discussion?
Motion, to move to discussion, limiting comment to 3 minutes per commissioner.
Okay, with the conditions set there by Commissioner Huntington, do I have a second?
Second.
And do we have all in favor of the,
Aye.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. Paul, before we get started, excuse me, before we get started with any discussions or questions or anything, is there any kind of introduction or any kind of any?
I'll be very brief. Congratulations. There's no increase proposed. This sets the ceiling for your assessment level for 2025, 2026. The reason you can absorb any of the negotiated cost of living increases to the solid waste provider is because we addressed the fund shortages several years ago, 2 years ago, and also the economy has leveled out a little bit in the fuel and such. So you're in good shape. You don't need to increase your rate to absorb a 4.6% cost of living. That's all good news. You're supposed to be happy. It's hard
Thanks,
sometimes.
Paul.
I understand.
Paul, thank you.
I appreciate that. I love to give good news once a decade. So.
Paul, thank you. I'll go ahead and ask if the commission has any questions for Paul or any questions about the resolution.
No, I have no questions.
Question about that, but I just want to ask the rest of you guys, and I don't know if we've ever even gotten an answer. And I know it's a top secret mystery that the waste people don't want to share what they actually do with recycle. But one of the things that I've noticed is, them putting recycle stuff in garbage truck, garbage stuff in recycle truck. So, and obviously that's an added expense, right? So the question has always been, well, are you actually recycling this? Have we ever gotten an answer? Or is it still like a top secret, you gotta, do a blood oath to get that kind of information?
I know that the question has come up several times. I don't think we've ever received a firm answer.
If you don't mind, you did send correspondence to Dade County Recycling to ask somebody to come speak to you, to give a report or whatever, and it was no. The only thing we ever discussed was the fact that they lost their transfer site in a fire.
Yeah. So, that's a question I think that is important for us to ask, because if they're actually not recycling and we have that extra pickup listen, recycling is wonderful if it's happening. The question is it happening? And if we can cut back the expense of that extra pickup because there's no recycling or they're not recycling, then that's something that we should look at. Yes, no?
Look, I agree. The question procedurally for you, Paul, is if we want to get an answer to that question, do we approve at the increase because it's before us, or do we have time to bring them here before we approve it? And if not, can we bring them in afterwards and adjust it accordingly?
In this situation, you're setting the maximum amount the assessment could be. Should the vendor come back with, hey, I can save you money, and it won't be enough, but
Ask the vendor.
imagining this as a possibility, you could lower the rate, but I don't anticipate that
I think they're
whatsoever.
asking for an increase, actually, so. I think
They will receive an increase. Your contract with them is a negotiated contract each year with the cost of living and the fuel indexes and stuff like that. The manager negotiates it. We anticipated this, at least this amount of money, so we're fine. So you're setting the ceiling for the assessment. You're not signing a contract. You're not doing anything about anything with solid waste. You're just setting your rate.
So we can always lower it, but this is the maximum we can go. And that's it's a great question I would love to see addressed, but it's a question for the manager. Maybe a presentation with our vendor or with Miami-Dade County.
One of you all know the answer.
Yeah, and setting the ceiling gives you, if hypothetically, the leverage that you can't go any higher.
Good.
My favorite thing.
Any other questions for Paul or for about the item? No? Okay. Well, Paul, thanks so much for being here. We appreciate your time and your information.
Happy to.
And the public hearing will coincide with the budget, first budget hearing.
I'm sorry, say that.
Public hearing will coincide with the first budget hearing.
That makes sense. The first budget hearing, you've set the rate, so we're fine with trim and everything. If this passes.
Kate, you haven't established your first public.
No, we
I have not. The clerk
Okay.
would
I'll-
set
I'll-
that.
No, I haven't heard from Dade County yet, so.
So I'll deal with it.
So can we pass this now without the dates? And you'll fill the dates in when we get that information. from the-
Yeah, I'll revise the resolution. So
There's quite a bit of time for the advertisements for this. so
I'll
that-
basically indicate that the dates are to be set.
That's legally sufficient?
It's okay, yeah.
Okay. All right, so, if there's no other questions at this time for Paul or on the item, do we have
Mr.
a
Mayor,
consensus?
This will need to be a voice vote
Okay,
because of tax assessment ad valorem.
all right, well then, Madam Clerk, would you,
Mayor Groth,
yes?
Vice Mayor Gonzalez,
C, yes.
Commissioner Amsler,
Yes.
Commissioner Huntington,
Yes.
Commissioner Samara.
Yes.
The item passes 5-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Paul, thanks again. Okay, all right, so, that wraps up the resolutions. So that brings us into our new business, and as amended, we bumped up our 14E, the village manager selection process, to our first item. So let's get started with that. Is there any introduction or anything that we have from, our manager of the evening?
I think he's going to defer to me.
Okay. So any introduction you'd like to give us before we get to?
You all have had the applications of the potential candidates. What you need to do tonight is essentially determine how you want to select your candidates that you want to invite to public interview, and also who those candidates are, and when you'd like to have the public interview, and what other, if any, vetting process you want to do. Other, a meet and greet with the community, whatever it is you want to decide to do.
Okay, anything further, or we're good to go from there? We're good to go from there. Okay, great. So I know that, turning back to the early discussions on the selection process that we have before us, I know we talked about how it would be important for us to have the public be able to meet potential candidates, to ask them some questions, to be part of it. And we've heard from residents here this evening and in advance of this evening that they share the same desire. So, I know that the other way that we've done this in the past with potential candidates is we all kind of identify our top several, however many we want to go with, or, we just go until we think we have several that, we're comfortable with, or we'd like to move on to the next phase. And then if we're all in consensus on which of those we want to have move forward, we set the dates for those next step interviews. So that's the way that we've done it before. That's how I would anticipate it going this evening. All of us have had an opportunity to look at the resumes, look at the cover letters, speak with whomever we choose. So maybe set a process and then talk about which candidates we'd like to kind of fulfill the next steps of that process. And right, well, we could set the steps, I think, kind of set the dates, set what we want to do, and then who among this list would then move on to that second process.
Pam,
That's what
we've only had one person drop out of the,
Yes,
that's that Candido.
that was Mr. Candido Sosa
Sosa.
Cruz.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I think one in process, first off, I definitely think that we need to have the interviews done publicly. I think that's very important. Village and commission, the residents need to hear it. And then the process after that is, once we get the numbers down, we can then decide, it should be done with a special commission meeting. And then we get,
Yeah, I think the next step, and this was just something that I thought about coming into this meeting, was the next step would be, I think we could set a special commission meeting where we'd conduct public interviews as we've done in the past, and have the candidates who are interested be here, have an opportunity that's publicly noticed, invite the public to come, invite the public to meet them, and, provide their comment, and then we'll conduct the interviews publicly, and we'll go from there. I think that would probably be the likely next step.
just to set the record straight, because I happened to interview all of them except for two. And they all said if they're in, let's say, whatever, the top 5 or 10, that they're willing to come down. So I want us to be sure that we, not take somebody because they're out of state, but that they're willing to come down, as long as they're in the, whatever,
You mean for the interview, do you mean?
for the interviews,
Okay.
public interview.
Okay, so that's just my thoughts on what the next step would be, and I'm just open to what the commission feels would be
So to
appropriate.
clarify, the idea that's on the table now is to have a special commission meeting to interview every candidate on this list?
No,
or
no,
do
no,
you want
only-
We have consensus. on?
Only the ones that we have consensus to move forward to the next one. I don't know that it makes a lot of sense to
Wouldn't want to invite
13,
anybody we don't
14.
have consensus on.
Yeah, look, I
waste anybody's time.
I agree.
Well, I agree with that, but I think if one commissioner feels that they have a candidate that they want to choose that the rest of the commissioners not pick, you should be able to have the opportunity to have that candidate come.
Well, I think that it makes,
I'm on board with having consensus. Majority should be able to decide at least, what's the point to.
that's the way we've
Well,
always done it.
Yeah, and like, what's the point of just selecting someone that four other commissioners don't feel comfortable with? I mean, that wouldn't pass.
Because personal interview, I mean, I can't speak for any of the commissioners that have spoken. I don't know if anybody's spoken to other candidates, but to me, speaking to the candidates
Yeah.
better than the resumes. I mean, a lot of people, when I was the first commissioner the first time, I went by resumes. I never really talked to anybody, and I regret that decision. You learn a lot from talking. I interviewed the people before I even looked at their resumes, and I learned a lot. So
That's a good point because interviewing it's always provides more of an insight. Did all of you interview? I just want to understand what was the process for you guys to come down now to a shortened list of selection. Was it just revising the resume? I mean, I called because I thought that's what we agreed to do. And so I interviewed a majority as well that I thought will qualify, but I want to understand what was the process for each one of you, if you don't mind.
No. Well, for me, I interviewed, 3 of them I did not interview. One didn't respond back to me. And then Larry Tibbs, when I interviewed him, told me that he wasn't going to, I'm surprised he didn't drop out, but he told me he wasn't going to do it because he had other projects.
Yeah.
President City Manager, I didn't interview.
Okay.
But I interviewed all the other ones. That was my
Okay.
way of doing it.
All right.
So, if I may, in all fairness, I thought that it would be a good idea to let everybody, very brief, everybody that's on the list, everybody that took the time to apply, do a brief presentation, whatever, 2-3 minutes, whatever it is, whether it's in person or whether it's by Zoom. And so we get, to actually see the person, which visually is also important. Not for any other reason other than to see what, the person themselves, and also to get a feel for them. I picked out my top 5 or my top 4 actually, simply by resume, because there are certain things that I was looking at. There are only 3 people that I've spoken to, and the reason for that is because they've actually reached out to me. They want the job. They should be reaching out to me. I shouldn't be chasing them to get a job. So I've had 3 people reach out to me, and I've spoken to those 3 individuals, and they're actually on my list. But not only because they reached out to me, but also because their resume backs up the fact that they reached out to me. So that's what I thought we could do. But I'll do whatever you guys want to do. But I think in all fairness, giving everybody 2 or 3 minutes, whether it's in person or by Zoom, so everybody can see them, everybody can hear them.
You mean you're pre-selected, right? So those were.
I've already pre-selected.
No, I'm saying, so if the 3 minutes of those that you pre-selected. wouldn't be-
I was thinking of giving everybody 2 or 3 minutes.
everyone.
Okay.
Whoever wants to.
But then what was the point for today? So wait, so we decided this some time ago. And we said today, that was sort of the process. We would have the time from April 14th, I think it was the closing date for resumes, Pamela.
11th, no?
11th until today. I mean, it gives us enough time to, assess who we want to, otherwise we would have called everybody to come forward and have 3 minutes.
I think, your idea of having them speak, I think asking questions by the commissioner is very important. And
It is, but what I'm
asking
saying is,
questions,
I think we need to
just letting
go.
them stand up there and talk for 3 minutes, they're going to say what you want to hear.
Absolutely.
You've learned in the past that doesn't work. And asking questions, like I might ask a question that, another commission might, or, the mayor might ask a question, wow, I didn't even think of that. That's a good question.
Yeah.
I think asking questions is more important than just allowing them to speak for 3 minutes. And
Yeah, I think,
I think that if this is a process that I'm sorry to interrupt you. This is a process that's very important. special commission meetings, we have commission meetings that last 4 hours. I think this is very important, and I think that it should take as long as it needs to take.
Yeah.
That special commission meeting, and the commissioner should be able to ask questions that they need, because I'm gonna tell you the questions that I asked, I got from residents who helped me with questions, because I wanted them, since I work for the residents, I wanted to know what they had. And the response that I got from them in person compared to what their resume, I said, it's completely different.
Mhm.
You know, either they overblown their resume or they under.
But the questions that you have, Commissioner Samaria, are going to be for the people that are actually whittled down. So if we say we're going to pick 4, right? We decide we want to pick 4 individuals and we have consensus, or do you want to ask everybody on this list? the questions?
Look, we have a commission meeting. I mean, I don't want to spend 4 hours, but this is a very important subject matter.
I just asked.
No, I know.
No,
you're
no,
right.
what's the
I'm trying to
question?
ask-
Go ahead.
Well, if this commission decides, I think having 4 people for this, the residents don't trust us. They really don't trust us, okay? And we need to pick the right person. So we need to have a special commission meeting. And if we decide that it's only 7 people or, 8 people or whatever the amount is, they would show up and then we would ask them the questions. Each commissioner gets asked a question. You might decide, wow, that guy answered a question that he's not part of my persons that I picked, but he just responded. I just think transparency is very important. We need to do this right. We have commission meetings that last for 4 hours. I'm not saying a special commission meeting should last for 4 hours, but realistically, I believe we should interview all the candidates publicly. It wasn't done where the public can't see the resume.
Well, that's
Now,
what
the
I- that's
clerk
what I just
explained to
said.
me, the clerk explained to me why the resume wasn't on the website. Okay, and her answer was a good enough answer.
Because I have some information in there that might be confidential. Yes.
But I just think that this is a very important subject matter that needs to have where the residents see it. So we can
Yeah.
decide how many, but I'm not comfortable with 4. I'll be honest with you, I'm not comfortable with 4.
So
Saying we should interview them all.
Yes.
Or not interview them all, actually give them an opportunity, 2-3 minutes to present their case, why they're the best candidate for this position. Then you just saw everybody.
No, I want questions asked that each commissioner has a question that they might have for a candidate.
you want a full interview.
I want an interview that is done.
All right, so guys, I've already done that. So for me today, I came with a list of 5 that I would pre-select for the next opportunity for them to come over. And I would not limit those 5 to 3 minutes. I would have an open conversation. I would ask the questions that are needed. And I'm hoping that would take us less than 4 hours. So that's my process.
I understand.
Very similar. I did not interview the candidates. I only talked to the ones that contacted me. I figured if you want the job, contact me. And my phone number is public. But I went over the resumes. I researched every candidate, and I did select 3 that jumped out to me. I will say my criteria is 5 things. It's Florida experience. It's Miami-Dade experience. It's ICMA accredited. It's your education and your experience of number of years. And I weigh it differently, Florida experience, Miami-Dade experience, or just if you're a village manager, wherever you are for, that still counts as experience. And for me, I identified 3 candidates. So I'm comfortable inviting those 3. If there's consensus, I don't see a reason to waste someone's time that there's no consensus or only one commissioner. I would hate for someone to travel here and spend their money to travel here just to hear one commissioner ask questions and thank you for your time. That's not what I want to be a part of.
So I think one of the very critically important things to me when I was going through these lists and looking over resumes and cover letters is based on the experience that we've had just in the last 2 years, which I find among the criteria that you've identified was Florida, but more specifically Miami-Dade County experience. I think that we live in a very unique place, and the issues here are very unique to where we live. So that formed the basis of thinking that out-of-state folks may not be the best suited for the job. Out-of-state folks may not be best suited for the job. So I find it very important that these people, our next manager has served in the state, has served in our county, and has connections here that person can reliably use to benefit our village. I think the issues with the trees is a great example. Someone from another state may not understand, the nuance of how Australian pines, non-native trees, and those things work here. So I think for my process, that was very important. It was very important. So I have identified 1, 2, 3, 4 four folks that I would like to have an opportunity for the commission to discuss with. I certainly think that it is of the utmost importance that the folks that are here that I think that, you know, we'll get on the process of consensus, but I think it's of the utmost importance that they come here, that they meet residents, that residents have an opportunity to talk to them, because demeanor and interaction with residents is very important too. And this will give people an opportunity to do that. So I tend to believe that consensus among the commission on who we would like to bring forward. And look, if we get the people that hypothetically, if we get the people here that we all think are best suited for the job and we're not terribly impressed, well, then the process continues. You know, we won't shut it down there and just pick someone just because.
That's what we agreed originally,
Right.
right? We said it could.
So are we going to pick a number or are we
no,
going to
that's-
just?
I think
Give their 4 picks or whatever amount of picks it is. Because it looks like I'm the only one that's gonna have more than 4 picks. So I want to see, maybe my candidates that I pick might be in the ones that you have. I just think we're doing an injustice to the residents of this. I really do. Out-of-state people, I'm telling you, there's reasons they're willing to come and be in Florida. They want this to be their final job. You need to hear the interviews. I really feel strong that you're not serving justice right to these candidates that are out of state. Because what we should have did is we should say, from now on, our city managers only should apply if they're in state, because that's basically what everybody's here saying. And
I don't think
not
that's
right.
what everyone.
No, well, no, I didn't say. I'm just.
I don't think anyone
Say that.
No, I'm saying, but you're saying
think
you're not picking. You're saying you think the out of state people should not is not part of your criteria. I just think let's have each commissioner give their picks, and then since I'm the last one that speaks to Samaria, then I'll give you there might be the ones that I might agree with all the commissioners, and then we can go on to the next step.
Okay, well then why don't we do that? How many people, I picked, I had 4 candidates that I wanted to move on. How many, well, I just want to know how many we are going to list names. I'm just trying to find out how many we all want to go with. I had 4. 4? You have 3?
I had 5.
Okay. All right, well then let's just go down the list. I will tell you, and we'll just got to keep a record of it. So we have. Okay, my picks were Mr. Martell, Mr. Leonard, Mr. Childress, and Mr. Cosio.
Sorry.
Sorry, which one?
Sorry.
Martell.
Correct.
Okay.
Martell, Leonard,
Chris,
Childress,
Childress,
and Cosio.
and Cosio?
Martel is who? Oh, Martel, sorry.
Got it.
Okay. Martel, Leonard, Childress, and who's,
Cosio. Leo.
let's do the last. Okay.
So you got 4, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so Chris, Martell, Al, and Leo.
Right.
Got it?
Beautiful. You want me to go next?
Yes.
Okay.
Sure.
I got Chris as well.
So you said Russo?
Yeah,
I said Martell. I didn't say Russo.
What?
No, I said
Martell.
Martell, Leonard, Childress, Cosio.
Oh, okay, Leonard, got it.
Who did you say, Art?
I said
You said Russo.
Chris Russo,
Yep.
Rousseau.
Jordan Leonard,
Okay.
Al.
Yep.
And Leo Casio.
Okay.
I'll go next.
Okay.
I'm Childress, Leonard, and Martell.
Leonard and Martell.
Okay.
I have 5. So did I give you the 5? Okay. So I have Leonard. I have Mendez Saldina, McLaughlin. Mendez Saldina, McLaughlin, Leonard Porta, and Cosio. Those are my 5.
Porter and Corsia.
I'll start again.
Yes.
Mendez Saldina, McLaughlin, Cosio, Leonard, and Porta.
Okay. I have, let's see. Well, I have 6. Okay, 6. I have Steele. Costo. Porter,
Who's the second one?
I'm sorry, Costo, C-O-S-I-O.
Cosio.
Casio.
Sorry, pronounce the name of
Okay.
Porter,
Porter.
McDonald,
I don't see Porter.
Porta.
Oh, Portel.
I'm sorry, Portel.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
Portel, McDonald,
Okay, got it.
and McLaughlin. And Leonard is another one.
7.
Yeah, 7.
All right.
All right, so the consensus among the 5 that I've seen so far that, well, that we all have, looks like, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks like Leonard. And consensus, by the way, is 3 or more. That's what we're going with?
Yeah.
All right, 3 or more. Al?
Yep.
Cosio?
Casio.
I don't know if we have any others.
Those are the only 3 that we have, 3 or more.
Correct.
And
Votes for Leonard, 3 for Childress, 4 for Cosio is my count.
Say it again.
I got 5 votes for Leonard, 3 votes for Childress, and 4 for Cosio is my count right now.
Looks correct to me.
So are the only 3 that we intersect across the board?
no,
Well-
Martell had a couple votes too, right?
Not
Yep.
consensus.
Not con-
Not to reach consensus. So just looking at the list, we had, if there's anyone that's interested in adding to their list or if they want to make any amendments.
Right.
Martell had 2, Porta had 2, McLaughlin had 2, I believe.
Top.
Sorry,
Oh, yeah,
and that was it.
Oh.
Those are the last folks that that are close. I'm sorry? 2. I got 2 for that. Okay. So it would be, yeah.
I
So
do.
3 or more, so consensus or more is Mr. Leonard, Mr. Childress, and Mr. Cosio.
People in the same Florida, we have one individual there, Mr. Porter. I can't believe he's only got 2. But anyway, that's what I think it's very important.
Porta.
Thank you for, I just think that we need to have these people. Just, he's qualified. And still, even though he's our former chief, disqualified. I would definitely,
Well,
I
we,
want to have, mine is you saying Leonard basically was agreed upon. Childress, you got Costo, Porter, Steele, and McGlock. I just feel strong about having, it's only a difference of 4 counties. Just feel strong that.
I understand what you're saying, but there are several folks on other people's lists too that didn't reach the 3 required votes, and
Might change everybody's mind just by the way they talk.
look, we've talked about that already, and the only viable solution to address that concern is to tell everybody to come here, and that just doesn't make sense under the process that we're doing. I think that these people have an opportunity to come here and talk to our residents. If what our residents say, I'm not particularly impressed by that person, or they have issues with it, and if we interview those people and we said this just isn't it, then we go back to our list.
Listen,
But
we had consensus to go by consensus.
right, and my other concern too is that the longer this takes, the closer we get to a budget season, which we need to have some resolution by that time, I think.
I'm not in agreement with that. I think budget season is great. I mean, if we can make it there, I'm with you. I would try to hit that, but it's important that we nail the right person in that period.
Yeah, certainly. I'm not suggesting we don't, but I'm just saying I do have an eye towards that, I think is all I'm
Any
saying.
opportunity. Okay, can I at least have since you had 2, can we have from the consensus, at least give Mr. Porter?
No, and if I may add to
Just-
that, I understand what you're saying in terms of the interview process. So I built up a little Excel here just to understand, if you don't mind, out loud saying it again so I can tally them. Ryan,
Yeah, sure.
your votes?
My votes were Leonard, Childress, and Cosio.
Ron?
here, right?
Children's and Russo? Is that what you said?
Yes. Cosio, Leonard, and Childress.
And Childress, sorry, so, okay,
Yes, it was Martel that worked.
Tell? Uh-huh.
Leonard.
No, you don't know?
Russo, Leonard, and Childress. What about you?
I had Cosio,
Seal,
Childress,
Childress,
Leonard, and Martel.
and Martel. All right, Samaria, you had,
Steele, Costello,
one moment.
I'm sorry,
Steele.
Steele. Costello.
Um,
Pronouncing his name wrong. Costello.
Cosio,
Porter,
Porta,
yeah.
yeah,
McDonald, McLaughlin, and Leonard. Those are my picks. think this has just been set up for this presentation.
You?
And Art, what were your votes, please, again?
Yes, ma'am. Give me a second here while you being. So I had Chris Russo,
Yes.
I had Jordan Leonard, I had Al, and I had Leo Casio.
And you had Casio.
Ma'am.
Okay. And I had
And where's
Porta. We had Leonard as
Mhm.
well, so I think that's the one we
Mhm. Mhm.
have.
Said Mendez?
Lawson and Mendez Saldina, which nobody. Okay. So yeah, it's a little bit all over the place. I understand the point of Commissioner Samaria about interviews. I mean, I don't know how much you guys are missing out if you haven't interviewed in person, you know, all of them. I mean, I get your point. I'm with you. I think a lot of people that doesn't call, I'm like always wondering how much you wanted. But I reach out, you know, and I got pleasant surprises with a lot of people. They're very well qualified, you know. And I don't know how fair it is just to base it from resume, but just to have a conversation. So I'm just putting it out there. That was my process and to select this 5.
All right, so then if we have, did your spreadsheet numbers match up with what we'd said?
I'm gonna tell you right now.
Yeah.
People, that's
Correct.
Can I place a vote, an additional vote? Is that
Sure.
allowed? Where are we at with this Dan Porta guy person? How many?
2.
2.
All right, I'm gonna put another vote in for Dan Porta.
All right, so that would give
Finance-
that
finance
individual,
person. I like finance people. They
that
look.
would be 3 there, so that would add to the list of 3 to add a 4th.
Any of you want to add another person? That's fine. If not, or it is.
still have McLaughlin that I want to add, and McDonald.
Yeah, but everybody's got to.
I know. Well,
I'm doing this.
That's all right. Take your time.
The main ones, and then you have one, and you added another vote, Art,
Ma'am.
Yes.
Porta.
to Porta.
Yeah.
So it goes, Russo has 2 votes, Porta has 3 votes, Lerner has 4 votes, Tibbs has none. Cosio has 4, Martel has 1, Gothlin has 2, Mendez Saldina has 1. Kenny has 1, Childress 3, Steele 1. So the top ones will be Leonard, Cosio, Gothlin, Porta. I'm sorry, I'm going to say it again. So it's Porta, Leonard, Cosio, and Childress. Those are the 4.
That's what I had.
Agree?
That's what I had.
All right, I did it with a spreadsheet. I'm sorry, but I needed just to make sure we're all over the place. So,
Okay.
all right.
So next up.
So again, I think the next step would be to set a special commission meeting, preferably by, let's say, the end of the month. Then we can have, you know, a substantive discussion in June about how the public interview process went, how the commission process, or the commission interview process went. I just think logically that makes the most sense. I'm open to the ideas.
Where you're going, there's not that many candidates. You should pick a city manager by June.
Yeah.
Well,
June
if,
commission meeting. That's, yeah, I'm absolutely, I'm serious. According
Well-
to, you only have 4 people here. The process at the workshop, I'm sorry, I apologize.
I'm just trying to say,
Raising my voice.
if it goes the way that we expect it to go, if there's someone
How
here that
can
we
it
all
not
have,
go the way you're gonna have
just-
a workshop?
I just want to finish my thought.
Sorry, go ahead.
If this goes the way that we expect it to go, we'll all interview these 4 people. And if we all have, if there's consensus on one of those 4 individuals, then yes, maybe we are picking that person by June.
Maybe we should be picking it by June. It's dragging it on past.
I can't say what's going to happen in the special commission meeting. I can't see in the future. There might be.
Or we don't, after we meet the 4, there may be somebody we don't like any of the 4.
I agree with that.
That's a question I had. Are we close? Are we keeping open the position list again or no?
As of April.
I'm saying because last time we did it, we didn't do that. If you remember, there was some time in the middle between our interview and our selection process,
Mhm.
which we kept the applying open.
People that have already applied.
I'm saying we did that. We did that, and actually that's how Chris came out about.
Well, we've identified a process now. We close applications.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we
We've
can
conducted
open it.
research
Yeah.
to have somebody else jump in. Following instructions is important. And if
Yeah.
the deadline was there, the deadline was there. If you didn't get your application in a time,
Yeah.
if we go through these 4 and there's not a consensus of the 4 to hire anybody, then we'll reopen applications. But
Yeah.
the first step in any application, any job is you follow instructions. If you didn't get it in by that time,
Yeah. No, I agree. It's
Go
just
through the
that I was bringing, that was the process followed before, and I think it was just to get more applicants. 14 was good. We have a good set, so.
So can I ask everyone if the idea of setting a special commission meeting for around the end of May makes sense? Is that something
Yeah.
that we agree on?
Yes.
Okay, and this will be, of course, it'll be publicly noticed. We'll encourage members of the public to be there.
Should we decide the date? I mean, we're May.
Yeah, we
6th.
definitely should.
Yeah.
We should decide on a date, but I'm just asking if that's what everyone wants to do. If that's the case, then let's look at dates and see if we can, if the clerk can reach out to each of those 4 candidates to make sure that they can be here in person, if
Gonna
they
stay
should be here in
available.
person, if they want to meet with members of the public. But let's look at those dates.
So Brad is bringing a very valid point here.
Just on timing, just so you're all.
Yeah.
And I know you all know this, I'm just mentioning. it. Obviously, if you select somebody at this special meeting, there's still the process.
Selecting anybody at the special.
Okay. Well, I'm just,
We may select them at the next commission meeting.
so if you, whenever you select.
Yeah.
There's still the process of negotiation, salary, terms.
Right.
And entering into an agreement.
Absolutely.
That might take a little bit.
Okay.
I'm just giving you for timing's sake.
No, and I want to understand, so what you're saying, we can select it on the meeting? Oh, so you're saying it's not going to be selected on the interview process meeting? What if we all agree to someone that we all feel comfortable with? I'm saying that then you can move to negotiations.
Establish it as a.
Yeah.
Right, well, so that's the point I was just going to make. If it's going to be a special meeting, then if we feel we have consensus at that time, then we can take that action if we so choose.
Initial idea was for the residents to see them, right?
Mhm.
And then for the residents to have input. And if we select that person that night, we're not going to get a lot of input from residents, right? So if they're,
I mean, it's May, what, 6th today?
no, I'm talking about for after the interview. If we interview people here, right? Here in person, right? There may be 2 or 3 people that show up, but then there's other people that watch them on video and whatnot, right? And then they'll have input that they'll send us
About what they thought about?
what they thought about the particular.
I don't know. I don't agree, guys. We have to hire. We have
I
to
agree,
hire.
but
And I
we
think
were
the
talking
process.
about getting input from residents.
Let me just finish my point.
Please finish.
But it's important.
Go ahead.
If we don't go through ourselves, we had a month to interview these people. I've done that. I've interviewed at least 10 of them. So I'm very comfortable to come forward. Today, I would have already selected of who needs to come, for the next phase. The next phase is to interview them
We did
publicly.
do that.
That's what I'm saying. Publicly, we'll interview them. I
Mhm.
think if we all get consensus, it's a sign that we're in a good track. So if we all find the right guy, are we going to post it for a debate for the public, what are we hoping to happen next after that? That's the part I don't
It's
understand.
literally a couple of days later.
But
Because
for
if we
what?
do it towards the end of May, right?
Yeah,
Then the first Tuesday of June, we have
Yeah.
our meeting. And then we give residents a few days to provide us input. I'm sure we're going to get emails. Hey, this person, that whatever they feel, so that they have a certain amount of input. If you want to listen, I'm good with I hire people all the time, but I don't care. I'll hire somebody tonight. But what the point is not that. The point is to give residents, we've been talking about this the entire night. Let's get resident input. Let's get resident input. And so now we're saying, no, we're just going to make the decision and residents have no input.
so residents have had since a month to go over the resumes.
No,
the
they
same
haven't.
way.
They don't have the resumes.
I mean, not a month, sorry. Oh,
They don't have the resume. They haven't seen the resumes.
okay. In my head, that's why I'm thinking we all have the opportunity.
No, yeah, but they
That's-
don't.
That's the
Okay,
point.
yes.
I apologize. That's the
Yeah.
point why I was making.
Okay, I see what you're
To
saying.
have these residents.
That's why for me, it's like, it's been sitting there. We've had opportunities to see, if anybody had comments, but I agree. Then let's, by name, that's all we have. That's true on the agenda. So we don't have the background. I understand now. All right, I'm okay with that. And we'll select on the 20s, whatever we decide now.
So what I would say, let's give enough time to provide for adequate noticing so that people know that it's coming. I would say probably the last week in May.
Yeah.
I'd say probably the 27th or the 28th.
Oh, that's, you got more,
Oh, that's Memorial Day. Shoot.
can't have it that weekend.
And so the next commission meeting would be what date, Pamela? June 3rd. Thank you.
Third, okay.
So I think it's critical, Pam, that when we announce this, that we tell residents, it's very, if you want to have input, it's critical that you attend via a person or via Zoom, and you will have a certain amount of time to provide input to the commission so that we can hear your opinions on the different individuals, right? And then we will be making a decision on hopefully in the next commission meeting, hopefully if we have consensus. But it's important the communication piece to the residents. The Biscayne Park app, email blast, next door neighbor, the whole kit and caboodle.
Okay. My question is, you want the residents notified for the special meeting or for?
Absolutely.
But when is the special meeting? 'Cause
Oh, we haven't decided that yet. That's the next part.
Okay.
That's what we're working on right now. So the 26th, which is in about 3 weeks, that's Memorial Day. Do we want to go before or after Memorial Day?
I want to do this
Before.
tomorrow, but you guys tell me. I don't care.
Do this within the next week or two.
Yeah,
So what about the 21st?
I'm good. Whatever that is. I don't know what it is, but I'm fine.
Well, so I'm trying to be sensitive to giving these candidates enough time to have notice that we are asking them to be here for that time period.
The only one that would have is Mr. Porter.
I mean, there are people who have schedules. I'm just trying to be sensitive to everyone's.
Yeah.
So the 21st would probably be the earliest I would want to do it. That's 2 weeks.
Can we do it on the 22nd, please?
On the
It's a
who?
Thursday, 22nd, Thursday, the 22nd.
There are no special meetings. There's no planning and boarding
I
zone.
don't see anything on the calendar, but
I'd be fine with that.
I may not
Numbers
be here on the
starting here.
22nd.
22nd?
That's what I'd be looking at. The
Okay.
22nd,
Beautiful.
starting 6 o'clock.
Yeah, it just rolls off your tongue. 20. Like it.
Okay.
So everyone's comfortable with the 22nd.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Is that?
If there are any issues with availability, I mean, look, these individuals are interviewing for the job. I would hope that absent any exigent circumstances or emergency circumstances, that they should be available, hopefully by then. Preferably, why? Yes, that's what we are looking at.
6 o'clock, right?
Yes, correct. And from there, not getting too far ahead of,
Clarity, are we ruling out selection that night or are we, is purely?
look, I think what we do, sorry, I apologize. I think what we do is I think we set it as a special commission meeting. So if there's any action that we want to take that evening, we are empowered to do so. But I am more comfortable with the prospect of getting these people in the public. I think we have an understanding now. And then hopefully at June being the next time that we readdress them.
June 3rd.
Correct.
I'm in agreement with that. I didn't realize that, yes, that everybody hasn't seen the resume, so yeah.
Because that could be a rather lengthy conversation, the selection. Do we
Yep.
want to set a special commission meeting before a commission meeting just to handle that? Say
Like
4 o'clock? to,
I think we'll have consensus by the time we're done, unless, we get input and we start seeing things that we did. I think we're kind of going to have an idea of which way we're going to go. I don't think the selection process is going to be that long. I think, Commissioner, listen,
Well, look,
let's take a step back. Maybe it will be, but hopefully not.
this is Biscayne Park.
Yeah.
Just so the
Yes.
clerk knows what-
yes,
So they're gonna have their interview on the 22nd.
correct.
The selection will take place on June 3rd,
Most likely.
likely at the meeting. Well, yeah, that's what's anticipated.
Yes.
And
important.
they do not need to be here on the 3rd. That,
This-
Maybe assume they're not in person, but I mean, ideally they can.
assuming they will be
Yes.
watching.
Have a presence, be it virtual
If
or
they want to.
Watching, if not here. Okay.
Having said that, now that we've whittled it down to 4, I will be speaking, I think it was one that I haven't spoken to in my list. So I will be reaching out to that person just to get an idea of, who they are, because I haven't spoken to them.
So again, I think that that's kind of, I think we should keep it as a special commission meeting in case there's any type of action that we want to take at that time, but I think it's going to be interviews of the potential village manager candidates. Okay. That it?
Are we going to, obviously, we're going to allow them to do a brief introduction of who they are, and then
Yes.
are we going to have written questions, or is everybody going to be allowed 3 questions, 5 questions, 20 questions? Why do you keep shaking your head? Just do whatever you want, but just say
not up.
what you feel.
Your mic's not, your.
Turn on the
I
microphone.
think the commissioner should be allowed to ask as many questions. I mean, how long are you expecting this meeting to last? The way you're talking with 4 people, are you expecting it to last only an hour? I just think we need to be asking as many questions as a commissioner feels he needs to ask.
Well,
Then,
I'm good with that.
because-
I'm just asking a question.
You got four commissioners, you got 4 hours. I think eliminate every commissioner, or sorry, excuse me, every candidate to an hour each. That caps the questions. If you're asking questions past an hour, you should have got your question in an hour.
I agree with you 100%. And I don't think it's going to take me an hour to EX my questions. I have not, truthfully, I asked all the candidates. I had a total.
There should be
Yeah.
limits.
No, I had a
If
total
every
of 10
candidate has a
agree.
chance to speak. I think 1 hour per candidate,
Yes.
4 hours.
Yes, I agree. No, and that's, I'm sorry. Again, I apologize. What do you call it? I have 10 questions, and when I interviewed them, I told them they have to come right to the point. They can't drag their answers on. They have to really come to the point. And I have like 10 questions. That's what I asked.
I think 10 to 15 minutes for an introduction, and then the remaining time of the hour for each candidate. Say tops. All right,
I think 10 minutes.
That's the resume. You don't need to.
10 minutes tops.
10 minutes for them to them give their introduction and their.
The rest will be for
wants to-
questions from the commission. I think that that's more than fair.
10 minutes. If they
I
can't
think
do it
that's,
in 10 minutes.
yeah, no, I understand. You want to be very clear.
So what I understand the consensus of the commission is 10 minute, the candidates have 10 minutes to do an introductory presentation, however they choose to do it. And then the remaining 50 minutes will be left open for the commission to ask questions.
Right, if it even goes that long. If it takes less, it takes less.
So, but at least this way, the candidates know to prepare for the meeting, that whatever presentation they're going to make would be at least no more than 10 minutes.
I think that makes sense, but I would ask the commission if there's consensus on that.
Yes.
Yes.
Madam Clerk, you good?
No.
10 and 50, 10
Please.
and 50.
Please.
Perfect.
Good question that just came up. So in terms of what we can ask, are there any restrictions as to we can ask? No.
Oh, yeah, I would stay away from anything like that, of course.
Age, marital.
Yeah, anything that's protected, age, marital status, sexual preference.
Yes.
There's still things protected? I thought we changed that.
Not yet,
Not yet? Oh.
but pretty much the rest of it is fair game.
Okay. Well, I think we've concluded.
I have another question. At what point do we start negotiations? Is it once we have a final person selected? I mean, we learned a little bit on that last time around. Is it something we just pick the last one, last one standing starts negotiation with, or is the last two, like last three, and based on that,
I think
how does that work?
I think it gets a little messy if you're negotiating with more than one.
At least, no, but I'm saying, you can ask about what the range of salary expectations could be.
Most questions are fair game. If you're
Yes.
candidates, what do you expect the salary and benefits
Yes.
to be? So that's part of your.
You can ask that before the interview.
Yeah.
You can literally call them up and just ask them that question. You're already going in there knowing exactly what.
I agree. I agree.
I would agree with that. I think it,
Because we had with Mr. Childress, and I think you noticed with Mr. Truitt, I really don't have the authority to negotiate. If you're
Unless-
gonna give me the guidelines, you're kind of negotiating from the dais to some extent.
okay.
And when we bring the agreement back to you for approval, that gives you the opportunity to kind of negotiate further. If there's a provision in it, no matter what it is, that you're not comfortable with, the candidate, the selected person is there and you can have that discussion. And I'll tailor the agreement to what you all agree with. Because otherwise you're giving me in public what your guidelines are, which means they know what they are and.
Yeah. Right.
Yep.
Okay.
Done.
Okay. All right. Well, I think we have a clear path forward. So we'll be looking forward to our special commission meeting on that day. And I think yeah, 22nd, sorry, 22nd at 6 o'clock. Okay. All right, so we moved some discussion items around. Our next one was discussion on the ordinance for special assessment. I know that this was something that I believe that this was something that Al brought to our attention. I was almost kind of wondering the same. I did bring this up to Dave Coviello, and he didn't really have any independent recollection of this.
You can either move it when Al gets here or.
I
familiar with it, I can address it.
I think, yeah, I think that's probably best.
So it is.
So do we have consensus to table 14B until Mr. Childress returns?
Yes.
Yes, okay. All right. So Miami Shores Aquatic Center was next up.
All right. So,
If I will, Mr. Mayor, can I make a motion that we limit discussion to 5 minutes for the commissioner who brought this item and 3 minutes for every remaining commissioner?
I think he's definitely right. There's not. Well, let's go until we get to the end, and if we got to extend,
yeah, I think it's very straightforward, guys. You have in front of you, this was a product of work behind for a long time. Getting in contact with the commission for the shore, of the council, different council members for the shores. I got interest from one of them, Councilmember Cantor, which I'm very grateful for having spend the time with me to meet with me and liaise with me in terms of what possibilities could there be for us. He did do some background check in terms of numbers, and met internally with staff to come back to this offer. Obviously, it's not an official offer because he cannot do that. The idea is just to get a sense of what that looks to us. Are we interested if this would be something he could bring to the Commission of the Shores, to the Council of the Shores? So I want to hear your thoughts. Basically, they're asking 30 grand for the usage of the aquatic center for weekdays only, and the weekdays
Days.
only. And it's, in reference to what Bay Harbor currently has, it's cheaper, but at the same time, it takes away the weekends, and we're also less people. So I had done some analysis in terms of costs. I'll save it from that. I'm just here to answer your questions basically and gather sort of a sense how you want to move forward. I remind you, this all started because we had several residents that were hoping that we make this happen. And like I said in the letter that's attached in the item, this wasn't just because we need the use of the pool, but also because residents want to be able to connect with the neighboring municipality. A lot of things happen at the aquatic center, you know, unless you can get in with someone, you can make that happen. So if you look into the strategic plan, all the comments we receive, and you look at to how many people were accounting for pool, it was a large amount. So this tackles, you know, how do we not build a pool ourselves and the cost that it takes, and maybe an example of a partnership that we can create. So the rest is up for you guys. So
I have a quick question. So this $30,000, is this multiple year agreement or is this just 1 year agreement?
no, this is for us to, so this is for now. No agreement has been in place.
No, no, I'm just asking, did they talk about multiple years or is this
No,
30,000 just for 1 year?
for 1 year.
So next year could be 40, next year could be 50?
Could be if we don't negotiate it. Right now, to give you a reference, Bay Harbor has had the same agreement for several years. It hasn't been changed, and it's on a yearly basis.
And it's 50?
That's attached to the,
Yeah, because they're a much bigger municipality.
not much bigger. There are 5,000 people.
Is it?
Yep. So it's not much larger. That's what I'm saying. So I did comparisons in terms of capital, in terms of household, you know, how do you look at it? I have different ways to go about negotiating. I'm not going to waste my time if you guys feel it doesn't deserve it. All I bring it up is just, I want to take your questions and see if there is a room for discussion with them, bring that back and say, well, we are looking to see, you know, A, B, or C as a next step.
So I'm with ex-commissioner Bob Anderson about spending $30,000 on our rec center instead of this. I think our rec center is more used, will be more used. It is more used than this is ever going to be. And I think this is a very select group of individuals that will utilize this. And I think that money is better used in the rec center.
Yeah, I tend to agree, especially because it's weekdays only and it's only for their operational season. That's 55 days. So it comes out to $550 a day. We can actually rent it for birthday parties cheaper than that.
Yeah.
So I called and I was like, hey, how much for a birthday party for 20 people? And they said it was $500.
Yeah.
You can rent it for a birthday party cheaper than that.
But you have to be a member of the Shores to rent it.
Yes.
So you wouldn't have access if you're a resident of Biscayne Park. So it's not a comparison.
I understand. And trust me, this would benefit.
No, you just said,
benefit me.
I call if I could get in. You couldn't. That's the whole point of this.
I feel the same thing. I see this as a want versus needs. And I really wish we had the ability to do this, because if we took care of our needs for the last 10 years, I would say spend the $30,000.
Yeah.
But we have a lot of needs around here. So for me, the only other alternate path forward, I would say if they could negotiate a access with a much larger entry rate because right now I know residents pay $7, non-residents guests pay $14.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there's a $20 per person fee that we don't pay anything, or we pay $5,000 just to get access, and our residents have to pay more, but they still get that access. That might be a compromise.
Unfortunately, it doesn't work as that. It's just not a price-led sort of a negotiation. This has to do with the ability of the space and how much of the capacity is disposable for the Shores.
For me, like I said, it's wants versus needs, and we have a lot of needs.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, it pains me a little to hear it because I mean, I have kids, you know, I know my kids, a lot of the families, you know, would have really been able to use it because it's a cost benefit for, you know, not doing a pool ourselves.
Yeah.
So I understand. I very much appreciate you following up on this.
Yeah.
I certainly would have liked to have seen it get over the hump, so to speak.
Yeah.
But and I think we have sounds like there's a consensus
I
that
think also to the point, because I agree. I mean, we have to be very tidy with every dollar. I would ask if you'll agree we wouldn't kill it and sort of park it until next year to see how this new manager or, you know, a situation comes along and budget season discussions sees or not feasible. So because this wouldn't be anything we would decide right now. And I think unless we have a budget in front of us, we wouldn't be able to contemplate it. So if it's okay with you guys, I would park it until we are talking by department and we see what our CIP looks like, what our budget for rec looks like. And at that point, you know, say no to it because we have no money, or say yes, consider it for next year, or just a sold, you know, no.
I'm more than comfortable with that, but
I'm comfortable with that, but bear in mind that it comes back 30,000 for this or 30,000 for, new park equipment. I'm gonna say 30,000 for new park.
I think it's fair, but I would just ask not to cancel until we have budgets in front of us that we can talk about, you know? If you are in agreement with that.
I'm certainly in agreement with that.
Okay. All right.
And we had
Do
consensus,
you,
right?
do you have consensus for
I
this?
think so.
Okay.
I think so.
All right.
Well, I appreciate your efforts, Commissioner.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, seeing the time, we're at 9:58. We have one discussion item, remaining. I don't know, well, we're not gonna have time and, yeah, kind of
You have 2
very,
minutes.
very apt. I think, the commissioner who's sponsoring it, I don't think, is planning on staying past the 10 o'clock deadline. So then, I guess we would request that that item be moved to the next commission meeting. We didn't get to our reports, so my apologies to our departments, for the people that were here for it. Sorry. Well done, Issa.
Thank you, Isa.
Perfect. All right, everyone. Well, having said that, I'll request a motion to adjourn at this time.
Motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We're in adjournment. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.